Guys, you don't need to choose between price and quality to get an amazing and affordable shave. DollarShaveClub.com is the answer. To prove how amazing their shave really is right now, they're going to give you your first month free to join the club. DollarShaveClub.com delivers amazing razors right to your door for a third of the price of what the greedy razor corporations charge. See why over 3 million members love Dollar Shave Club. They're so confident in the quality of all their products. Now, you can get your first month of the club for free. Just pay shipping. After that, it's just a few bucks a month. No long-term commitment, no hidden fees. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Greggy. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Greggy. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over Greggy Show. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
Top of the morning to you, Greg.
How are you?
I'm good.
Are you? Okay. You just looked at the lights that you just spent a long time fiddling with.
It's going to be one of those things where I have to try
You're
not
never
to look at
happy
myself.
enough with it?
No, we're still kind of moving stuff around a little bit, trying some stuff.
Last week looked a little dark.
Yeah, we're trying to balance it out because...
It's because we were so tan.
Actually, I am tanner now than I was.
Fact.
But the... I want to make sure that when it goes to compression, it's not too dark. And that's what I've noticed on our shows a little bit lately. Like, set looks great, lighting looks great in the raw, but then when it goes to compress, for YouTube, it goes to a pretty harsh compression, and so it's going to be a little darker on the tail end. So I want to make sure we fix that going forward. And it's hard. Thank you for your patience today, guys.
No,
it's hard not to do that. It's hard to do that when there's no one sitting in the seats. So.
Nick Scarpino's been against the darks for a long time. Over here, the pride of Long Island, Colin Moriarty.
Why? You ever think about
Save
why?
it for your topic. As if your topic was going to be about tissues.
Why so ornate? Is it like supposed to trick someone? You put this on top of your toilet,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's a fine tin 19th century box." Yeah,
Well, you understand that,
$1.29 Kleenex box.
The Kleenex and the tissue companies have been chasing this for a long time because for a long time they were keeping grandmas in business because grandmas would make those little things they'd crochet and lay them over the tissue boxes. So the tissue boxes people thought ahead when we all started getting really lazy and made them like
Too many old people
Well, I also
making too
think
much
they
money.
need to differentiate from toilet paper. Because why not just buy toilet paper instead and just put that on the thing?
It's so
and just use
soft.
that?
Nobody's putting
No, I
that
get
toilet-
that. I get that. No, people use toilet paper.
I do. I do. I'm just saying nobody's putting that out as like tissues for guests.
But I think that's why. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so ornate. That's why they sell it in this way. Is because you could just put it in a toilet paper-esque, design.
By the way, that's the pure one, Tim Geddes.
Let's
Do you think that there's money to be made in the
Design of
design
tissue
of
boxes.
tissue boxes?
No.
Okay.
I think they probably their artist on staff is just overworked. He just cranks them out.
I don't think he's an artist. I think he does something else, and they're like, it's kind of like when we need to do something, it's just like, can one of us do the designs? Like, I guess so. And then we get that brought to you by kindoffunny.com/store thing.
It's
Shout
getting
out to
there.
Nick.
That's the second iteration of that.
of
The first one,
You couldn't see the
I
shirts.
was like, this is going to be a great idea. I'll put black shirts on a dark gray background with a drop shadow, and we'll just see, and people just kind of know what that amorphous shape is. And then I was like, this is much better. A white background with two black shirts stacked on top of each other. Still an amorphous shape, but you get that maybe one of them might be a t-shirt. Do you get that from that? There's
I
a
thought
crew
they were
neck.
gloves. I thought they were gloves doing this kind of thing.
They might be.
Or like, you know what I'm talking about when the players put up their gloves like that and they make one image. That's always cool. Can we sell gloves like that? Do we have enough people playing football?
I wish we sold gloves. I wish we had fingerless gloves and knuckleless gloves. Like from the 80s, the lifting gloves that
Sure.
like people
Oh,
in the
yeah,
Warriors used to wear.
We should just get UFC gloves and sell those.
That'd be amazing.
Did you
but
guys
just
know
the
that
smiley face.
Kevin, not only does Kevin knit, that Kevin once knit fingerless gloves.
Not once, like 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5
Those
times.
gloves that you're talking about, yeah, I can knit those.
He knits those. He is a warrior.
Like the bum gloves, like the ones that you always
Yeah.
see in like 80s when 80s homeless people
Bless
were
you.
on movies. You would
No
see they would always
fingertips.
have the knit gloves that had the fingertips look like someone chewed
The
them off.
fingerticks.
The ticks.
I'm just going to let that slide that Colin just did the most adorable sneeze I've ever heard.
He's holding it back. He knows he's doing a show.
But man, my God, I mean, I tried to hold back sneezes too my whole life, but like, I've never heard you sneeze.
1 to 10, Colin. How sick are you? Right now?
Choosies.
I'm coming down. Like I think I'm past the contagious part and like the kind of crazy part, and then kind of I don't feel well at all. But
So give me a 1 to 10.
on how well I feel or how sick I feel.
How sick you feel?
7.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty
6.
high.
That's pretty
I'm
high.
like really hot. Like
Well,
that's
you
how
are every day. We
But
know that.
I
There's
just
a
feel. I
picture of
just
you.
feel like shit. I look like shit. I just.
No.
But I was kind of anxious to get in here. I was kind of like wanted to do something this week, so I knew I could have stayed home. But what's the point? What am I going to do there?
Nothing.
Just like look at the
Just be
ceiling
sexy.
or
Just do whatever you want,
Portillo's there.
dude.
You can play with him.
pet Lola. That's fun. Petting Lola's fun.
It's fun.
I can't hear anything. Like I feel like
You got
It's okay,
that
word.
nasty ass ear pressure thing. You're like,
when a plane was coming down from Seattle yesterday, I remember I was on the plane once with you when I had a cold, and I was like, I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
Like when the plane was coming down, I was like almost about to cry.
I'll never ever forget coming back from a trip with Sam Bishop, formerly freelance for IGN for a long time, total PlayStation, and now works at PlayStation. And he was a row in front of me, and we were just landing. Everything was totally cool, and he just went and punched the seat in front of him. And I was like, "What the fuck was that?" When we got there, he's like, "Oh, my sinuses, man. I just the pressure is building. I couldn't take it." I was like, "That's fucked up. I've never seen that before."
that
I haven't seen it
seems
since.
A weird way to handle that situation, but good
You weren't
thing.
in his nostrils. You don't know.
You don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
You don't know.
There's very few things in my life that I figure I'm gonna punch something, but that's just me.
If you didn't know, this is the Game Over Greggy show each and every week. 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather around this table. Each bring a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where we put the show up early every Friday, and you can get it by tossing us a few bucks, and you can also get a bunch of exclusive perks, goodies, and other things. If you have no money to give us, no big deal. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny, where we post the entire show topic by topic, day by day, until it goes up as one big video and MP3 the following Friday. Tim,
Yes.
start us off.
We just came back from PAX West, the first ever PAX West.
I don't like it one bit.
Formerly known as PAX Prime, forever known as PAX Prime.
Yeah.
We had a really good time. I want to talk about that time
Okay.
because I'm upset that some of those times were not recorded.
Okay.
People will never know what really happened on those
Sure.
times. So I want this to
Sometimes
be
the footage needs to be lost.
like the urban legend. You know? I want
yes.
to tell the tales so that people can pass this down from generation to generation. There might not be video footage, but people will always have,
This.
what their ancestors
It's like the
told them.
Tenacious D song about the greatest song in the world. That isn't the greatest song in the world, but
Right.
them talking about
Exactly.
the greatest song in the world. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So again, jokes aside, I'm really proud of this PAX.
Yeah.
I feel like we killed it. Round of applause for us. Yeah. And shout out to you guys for being super awesome and showing up to every single thing that we did.
Best friends were amazing.
Which this year was a lot.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
At conventions over this last year, I feel like we've really refined like what kind of funny at a convention means. And I think that especially with this PAX, we're like nailing it.
Yeah.
Having the Rooster Teeth booth be kind of like our home base is super nice because there's a place for people to go, buy merch, see us, do signings and all that stuff. While we're not at 10.5 million panels. And I want to congratulate you, Greg, because I think that you did a really, really good job hosting all the panels, but specifically the Kind of Funny panel and the Let's Play panel with Bruce Green and Jeff Ramsey.
Right.
That's where I want to start.
Okay.
Walk us through where your head was at
Sure.
and what the fuck happened.
What I like about the Let's Play panel, and what is something, it's something I don't get to do often enough, I feel personally, is that usually I'm moderating the panel or it's one of our panels, so I have to host the panel or be on that. Usually when we do a live panel, I'm the guy who has some kind of battle plan for what I expect to happen, even if it is just talking about optometrists. Let's Play panel, that's on Jeff. Jeff's in charge of the Let's Play Network. I can just show up and do whatever I want. So that's what we did. Beforehand, you and I went out. We went out on a triple date. You, me, Grimecraft. We drank a few drinks there. Maybe a few more than a few. Mm-hmm. Then we said, I said, I'm going to bring beers to this thing. I'm going to bring some beers to this Let's Play panel. I text Jeff, and we're going to be late because we're picking up beers. He said, thank God. I was like, we're making the right choices here. And so then we did the search for any alcohol store that'd be open, found one in a mall. We're in there. Every other store in this mall is closed. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work out.
There was what was it called? Wine Club?
We get up there. There's a wine club store up there.
Wine Club on like the 5th floor of this mall.
I'm like, this is
Still open.
This is a bad move. They're not gonna have it all what we want. We get in there. I'm like, do you only sell wine? Like, do you sell bourbon? Do you sell hard alcohol? She's like, no, but we sell beer. And I was like, perfect. You nailed it. All right, great. And they only sold them in individual bottles. So we went over there and just pulled out 1 million different bottles of beer and bought 1 million different bottles of beer, bought a bottle opener. Gia and the girls got a bottle of wine, and we got some solo cups, as you do. And then we went to this panel. And as I'm walking with all these beers, it dawns on me that this could finally be my chance. Because you know, Kind of Funny Live 2. Kind of Funny Live 1 even. You made a big deal about entrances. It did happen. No video proof. You made a big deal about the video entrances, right? Go wide so they can see him blush, Kev. Come on, keep everybody involved in the show. over there. That's there you go. Thank you. Good job, Kev. But the entrances are a big deal. As I said at the Let's Play Live panel, we start the Let's Play Live panel, we go through, and I immediately then stop the Let's Play Live panel so I can do my entrance. There was a little wrestling federation that could, out in Philadelphia, called ECW.
EC-Dub.
Thank you very much. Big ups to Paul Heyman. And I loved ECW, and I watched ECW. And the man who had the best entrance, of course, was the Sandman. Because what the Sandman did, and Colin, you remember the Sandman, correct?
Yes.
Do you really?
No.
God damn it. Sandman, also known as Hardcore Hack when he briefly went to WCW and then got out of there and came back to be Sandman, was just a bleach blonde guy, got a body like he drank a lot of beer because he drank a lot of beer, and he'd be drunk on the way to the ring. Because what he would do is enter through the crowd to Metallica's Enter Sandman. There you go. And when that song came on, you knew it was fucking popping off, and everybody would look around, and Sandman would be entering from the rafters with his kendo stick, which is that wooden cane you beat people with, right? And then his pockets would be filled with cans of beer, usually Budweiser and stuff. Now, to be clear, he was doing this before Stone Cold was asking for beers. Like, and he does it to an
And then
extreme.
he went and he would shotgun one, right, and be like, and then
That's Stone Cold. No, yeah, that is Stone Cold,
That's what
right?
we
No,
do,
but that's
right?
not what Sandman's doing.
So
now.
Sandman was the person who you're saying would originate the Stone Cold Stunner.
No, I'm
And then
not.
Stone
That's not at all
he
what
just
I'm
called
saying.
it the Stunner, the Sandman Stunner, the SS, and then Stone Cold was like, no, we'll still keep SS, but we'll put a C in there, and it'll be Stone Cold Stunner.
And so Sandman would come to the ring with his pockets just packed with Budweiser in a can or whatever, any kind of beer in a can, right? And what he would do is he would come out and he would drink it, and then he'd slam it against his head, and he would slam it against his head hard enough that he would cut his own head open before he got to the ring, so he'd already be bleeding by the time he got there. But what he would do, Colin, to take it up a notch, is that he'd be walking through the crowd, everybody's around him going, and he's freaking out, he's doing this thing, and then he would take them out and he would point at people, and if they were like, yeah, he would go like this and pour the beer into their mouths while he drank the beer as well on the way to the ring, and he just had a million beers in his
Wait,
pockets.
he had 2 beers.
Multiple beers
He
in his
poured
pockets.
one into the mouth.
Yeah.
And then also drank it out of the
No,
pocket.
no, Nick. Why would he do it like that?
I don't know. I don't understand
No, he would drink
why he
one,
would do
would
any
pour
of this, to be
because
perfectly
it's
honest.
awesome. ECW was pomp and circumstance, all right?
it
It
was.
was hardcore. It was the anti-establishment wrestling movement.
Yeah.
We had Sabu, we had Taz, we had RVD,
RVD.
Yeah, the
the
Stone
whole
Cold
fucking
Stunner.
show. We did. Stone Cold did wrestle there. He was just Steve Austin though. He didn't. And he wasn't. Okay. Anyways, so this is what Sandman does.
The
Colin.
story's still going on. Yep.
Oh, we
Okay.
haven't even gotten to the hacks part of it yet. So
I can't even believe that this story is still actually going on. Let's
I'm just trying to educate you. You've been so great about teaching me about Thomas Jefferson,
Yeah.
all the
Oh, love
horses he
teaching
rode.
about
All right,
Thomas
I'm trying
Jefferson
to.
rode a tunnel. Or
I'm just trying to
horses.
teach
he
you a
was
little bit about
he was an equestrian.
Sandman.
Thomas Jefferson.
He was.
And as a quick aside, if I'm lying, I'm dying about Sandman, and why you should really respect him is he once did this angle. He once did this angle, Colin, where he got blinded in the ring, and he refused to drop the act, so he wouldn't even leave his house. He wanted people to really think he was blinded. He wasn't really blinded though. He came out and just caned the shit out of people. Anyways, so
Like a blind samurai.
exactly. So he wasn't blind though. He at this point was
Just like a blind samurai.
If he was blind, how did he get the beer into people's mouths when he was pouring
this,
the beer?
but it was
into-
all fake.
Was
And
it by
when he
feel?
when he
Did you feel
Stop
something?
touching me! I'm talking about Sandman. Respect is earned.
I respect you,
by
Greg.
Sandman. So, anyways, I thought I was drunk. I had this idea. When we got there, I asked Bruce, "Do you have Spotify?" No. I'm like, "Can you get access to the Enter Sandman?" He said, "Yes." And so, and I said, "Jeff, when you introduce me, I want to do something." He said, "Okay." And so we got there, and they were like, "All right, this is the panel." And I'm like, "I've always wanted to do something," and I explained everything I just explained, not in as much detail. I didn't want to bore the crowd. You know what I mean? Just as much detail?
Just as much detail.
My
the
apologies.
granular amount of detail about.
I wanted them to respect
Sandman.
Sandman. And so what I did is I walked out into the crowd when Bruce started playing the music, and I sat in the back. And they knew I was there. They knew I was there though. I sat in the back, and then I waited for when the music kicks in, and it kicked in. I popped up with
After 5 minutes.
with my beers.
Because as we all know about the Enter Sandman theme song, it lasts forever.
Yeah.
And ever.
But people
and
enjoyed
ever.
it.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I popped up. Everybody went crazy. They all stood up.
Great
I
time.
started chugging my beer, and then I started climbing over the rows of chairs. And this has been captured on film before for the Sandman and now myself, where Sandman would tap somebody on the shoulder. See, Kevin, when my hand's off, you should be in the wide shot. If you want me to come over and fucking host the show and direct the show, I'll do that as well. See, this is wrong. You're doing it wrong. What do you want more? Want more information? Because what the Sandman would do and what I would do is ask, "Are you 21?" And then if they mouthed yes, they could get the beer. Because again, if you lie,
Sounds ironclad.
if you lie on camera, that's on you. That's not on the Sandman.
I think that's
or
a
me.
law. Yeah.
So I did that. Walked there pouring beers in people's mouths. I did tap a few people. I'm like, are you 21? They said no. And I was like, well, thank you very much for being honest. And I'd move on to
They
the next
looked
person.
horrified.
One girl, for some reason, said she's are you 21? She'd seen 3 or 4 people get the beer all over in their mouths, mostly. You know what I mean? Are you 21?
It was
or
not
whatever?
mostly.
Mostly in their mouth.
There was some that got in the mouth.
They mostly got
some
in the
did.
mouth.
I was doing it accurate to the Sandman.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm not blaming you.
Thank
I'm
you.
just like these people, like they didn't expect that.
when they left, but that's why they could have said no.
Oh, I know.
The one girl though, she's like yes. And then he had her mouth open, and I went to, and she closed her mouth and her eyes, and just let it go all over her face.
Well,
and I
she
was like,
stood. So she also stood on the chair. So you guys were like raised.
Yeah.
So we could see both of you clearly.
Yeah.
And she just kind of like
let it shower on her.
just bathed in it as
Yeah.
you just poured this beer.
Yeah.
Poured 2 beers on her actually.
Yeah.
That was special.
And then I ran, but then the downside to all this, Colin, of course, these are bottles, so I couldn't smash them on my head. So I still don't feel like I've nailed
downside.
the Sandman entrance. I will redo the Sandman entrance at some point. Just a heads up. Yes,
Next time,
questions.
try.
Questions from the
Not
crowd.
questioning, just more of a comment.
Yeah.
You could have smashed it on your head, and you should try next time. Just take
Both
yourself
of
out of
them
the
at
game.
the same
yeah,
time.
Just
We cut
Greg's
Gus with a
done.
fake one. I'm not going to use a real one. So that was how we started the panel.
Is this entire topic supposed to be about PAX or just the Sandman entrance specifically?
I think it should just be about the Sandman entrance and
that's
Sandman
it.
factoids.
Yeah, I mean they're one and the same as far as I'm considered. When the people that were there think back to PAX, the first ever PAX West,
Yeah.
they're gonna remember enter Game Over Greggy.
Well, I know
'Cause
that
he came through and
I know that the enforcers
broke
are going to
glass
remember.
everywhere.
Yeah, I know the refor. Now again, I didn't break the glass.
he didn't start the fire.
It was always burning
Always burning.
since the world's been turning.
not so
Harry
sure.
Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray.
So that's how we started that panel, and then that panel went amazingly.
What
Millie was
else
there.
happened? What else
Jeff was there.
happened in that panel, Greg?
There was a lot of good conversation. I think we talked a lot. We answered a lot of questions from the audience. For some kids had some questions. We answered those questions. We continued to drink.
Yeah.
Millie was funny. Jeff kept telling her to put earmuffs on because then he would curse or talk about anal sex or something.
Yeah.
And that would be those things.
Or how he lost his virginity.
Yeah.
That was a big topic of the night.
Right.
Was virginities and when people lost them.
Yeah.
And yeah, calling people out for maybe not losing them yet. Then there was deep throatings going on.
I mean, that's an exaggerated story of what I did on that part. Like, I think you guys are making a little too much out of that one personally.
I wish we had that filmed.
Wait, is
'cause
this
that
when you decided
fucking was insane.
when the beer was erupting and
Yeah.
you decided that instead of putting the 2 beers that were in your hand down, you said the only thing I can do to stop this eruption is stop it with my mouth.
right.
And then you said it's not enough to use just my mouth. I have to get this as close to my stomach as possible because everyone knows the straightest line between point A and point B is your throat. So you
I mean, it's a
deep-throated
well.
it.
This is. I mean, there are a lot of bartenders watching. I'm sure Ed
Yeah,
Castro is
sure.
walking. You know this. When you put a beer bottle down too hard and it starts to foam over,
Yeah.
you can put your hand on it. The carbonation's still there. It's still fizzing underneath the surface. You can let it go everywhere, but then you waste a lot of beer. So yeah, what I did is drop down and covered it with my mouth, and then to finish off the carbonation faster, I went up and down and up and
Yeah,
down.
you
a
gotta
few
get
times.
up and down on it.
It's just
Yeah.
the normal thing. It's how you get rid of it.
And then
You don't want to be there all day.
I don't remember
You
the
got shit to
segue,
do.
but at some point, you and Bruce then fell behind the table.
Again, Bruce grabbed me and pulled me down.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to. Here's the course of events with the broken glass. Everyone keeps trying to push on me. Is the fact that first off, they have your bottles of water at PAX are glass, which is
there was
dumb.
more. There were more like vases. Of
Yeah, it's a
water.
dumb idea. No, the vases are the silver ones that are impenetrable. Those are fine. But then they have these like fancy ass things you pop silver tops off and you go. Okay, whatever. That's a stupid move. Now again, I don't like that I'm being thrown in a bus for this. I'm there having quite the panel. Probably the panel performance of my life, if I'm being
I
honest.
agree with you.
And Bruce Green from Funhouse here at some point, and I forget the transition as well, grabs me to make out with me and pulls me on the ground.
I'm gonna put this, on video now. You're wrong about that chain of events, Greg.
You educate me.
You definitely. He made some reference to being a power bottom,
Yep.
which
That
apparently
was
was
it.
a thing at the fun house thing.
Yep.
And then you then looked at him and no, an audience
He doesn't
member.
even know, ladies
No,
and
I do.
gentlemen.
I
He
do.
doesn't even know.
You guys had
I
an
rest my
audience member
case.
come up, and you demanded that he kiss Bruce on the cheek.
Yeah.
Bruce then
Made him kiss me.
swerved you
Yeah.
and had
Like
him
Superman
kiss
2.
you, and that's when you pulled Bruce down.
Yeah.
That's when you guys were back there. You popped up without your shirt on.
Yeah.
Then
and I hadn't broken anything yet.
I think that might have been when the first vase thing fell. shattered, and everyone was very surprised. But then you were then pulled down by Bruce. So you do remember some of that correctly.
I mean, this is also one of those things of like in a car accident.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own perspective. Which one's right? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
no way. You have to
There's
go
no
out-
one in the world that might know what exactly happened. That's what I'm saying. This is the
Colin,
urban
you've
legend.
done some amateur insurance. You know that when you go to a car accident scene, you got to look for like the tire marks, the skid marks, where'd they go. You put down the berries on it to see how they
It's
roll.
like in Fast and Furious 4 when Vin Diesel just like saw the skid
Oh, yeah.
mark and was like had that vision.
that was basically a
of
bit
what
on Colin's
happened.
amateur insurance
Still
career.
alive.
And that vision included Michelle Rodriguez getting shot.
Yeah, he could figure it out. He smelled the gunpowder
Yeah.
and where it originated from, and he knew that the person was holding it approximately like 6 feet above the ground, and he figured out that it wasn't Letty shooting; it was the other guy that was shooting. And then he crammed that guy into another car with his car. End scene.
Yeah.
End scene.
Now, here,
So I-
one time Sandman fought Rhino.
What color was Sandman's hair? Because that's what I really wanted to know.
Bleached.
What if you had to describe it
Bleach blonde.
in
Guy Fieri.
painful detail?
Guy Ferrari, but not with like spikes and stuff. He just had it bleached.
This isn't painful enough. The level of detail isn't painful enough for you.
I'm just saying, I would like a little bit more to flesh out
It was
the
a
image
great
of
panel.
Sandman.
It was.
Then we put Kevin up to answer all the Q&A. And he did a great job,
Well,
too.
I mean, yeah, I mean to keep going. So then Bruce pulls you down, then you pop up in your underwear.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
I understand how
At
comedy-
that point, another glass broke.
I understand. Well, and at that point, I
lot
did
of
worry it
broken
was
glass.
Stone Cold. When you hear the glass, it's your ass.
You were like, uh-oh.
This is it.
He
He's
might
coming
be
here.
coming in. He didn't
Yeah,
come
yeah,
in.
He didn't come in.
But then yeah, at some point Jeff asked Kevin to come up, so Kevin
Yeah.
came up and
Yeah.
everyone else left.
Yeah.
And it was just Kevin up there alone. Broken glass everywhere.
People pissing on the stairs, they just don't care.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic panel, and the people that were there had a blast.
Now, if I can give you an epilogue to this story, Colin, I had perhaps
Please do.
I had
Yeah,
perhaps
why
the
not? You
best
gotta
joke that'll
round it
never
out.
be last night at the airport. Because we're all sitting there waiting to get on the plane. And you know how I am. Sometimes when I get a gem, I can't hold back my own laughter. You know what I mean? It's so funny to me that I know it'll be funny. It would have been the funniest thing of all time. And what it was I was sitting there. Tim was there. Kevin was there. And I came up with probably my joke of the century. And what I was going to do is turn to Tim and say, oh, hey, I already told Kevin this. I don't know if he told you. John Cena's over there. And then Tim would have been like, what? And hopefully Kevin either wouldn't have heard it, which would have been my A plan, or B plan, Kevin would have been like, yeah, totally. And then Tim would have gone over there and looked for John Cena and not found John Cena. John Cena would be over there just chilling out.
Yesterday was really rough for us at the airport. There was a 5:00 flight to San Francisco that was just straight canceled. Luckily, we were not on that flight. We were on the 7:30, but we had to deal with all the people that were
Trying to get
supposed
on that
be
7:30 flight, yeah.
It was just utter chaos. There was people everywhere. No one was happy. It was a disaster. But Greg with the heart of gold,
Held it down.
Thinking of quality John Cena jokes. I
Yeah,
don't even know
yeah,
if that
it
would
was.
qualify as
It was.
quality or a joke, but you know.
But it could have been. Think if that plays out the right way. You walk over there, you're looking
expect
for
to
John Cena.
But here's my thing. You know, really,
Yeah.
Tim, John Cena's over there. You think I'm going to be like, well, golly darn, I need to go see this Mr.
I think you
Cena.
would. You
I
would wanna
not-
go see
I
him.
would, from where I'm standing, I might give it a, that's it.
I'd be like, I'm not even really
That's why I wouldn't have done that for you. I wouldn't have done it.
If it was CM Punk, I would have gone over there and been like this.
Yeah. Oh, it's coming. Saturday night.
It's gonna be something.
So funny, well, it's not an anecdote. It's just it's a thing. There was a 7:30 a.m. LA flight out of Seattle on Virgin America, also canceled. Something's going on.
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
yeah.
The San Francisco flight
Smells like
Smooth.
Alaska.
The second thing is the one thing I was disappointed. I don't know what happened at the panel. I'm glad you had a good time. The one thing I was disappointed is you called me because I really didn't want people to think that I was even in the proximity of PAX, really, except for like some little things, whatever. I didn't want to ruin any sort of surprise. But then I also realized that the next day, I'm like, how could you have not known? I mean, you out there, that I wasn't going to be at that panel. You know what I mean?
Because that's such a Colin thing to do. If you're catching up, Colin was in Seattle for the Dave Matthews Band concert. And so the
DMB.
plan was hatched. DMB, I apologize.
The
plan-
Gorge, beautiful venue.
The plan was hatched, DMB at symbol, the Gorge. The plan was hatched to bring Colin on the Kind of Funny panel and not tell anybody who was going to be there. Have it be a surprise. And it worked. And the point is that why would we call you? Tweets were already going out that you were at the Sheridan bar. And that is such a Colin Moriarty thing to do. It is such a Colin Moriarty thing to do, to come to one of the biggest video game conventions in the same town and not have anything to do with it. So that's why there's nothing
That's
we
true.
could have
That is a
done.
good
You
move.
had
It would've been
said
a
you
better
weren't
move. I
going.
shouldn't have done
You had said on Colin and Greg Live all these things that you weren't going.
Well, I kept lying. The power
Yeah,
of lies.
exactly. Oh yeah, the power lies big time, and that's what you're supposed to do in that situation.
would
It's
love
the David Jaffe method. Oh, I won't be at E3. My game's not getting it, and then it is, and people freaked out. And even when we did the panel, and again, thank you to everybody who came out to be part of that panel.
That panel was fun.
That was a huge audience.
That panel was filmed.
We had
It
a-
will be uploaded at some point in the
Exactly.
future.
Yeah, and it was a big room, and we filled it way more than I thought we would. It was crazy. And so when you came out, there was a huge cheer. Everybody was excited. We talked shit about you, acting like you weren't there, and how you wouldn't be there. People were still, they bought in hook, line, and
I
sinker.
already talk a
man.
little shit about me at the Let's Play panel. You don't remember it, but it,
I mean, I talk a little shit about you everywhere, Colin.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You got to keep me alive in the memories. of the
Exactly.
people.
I'm doing.
When
I'm,
I die,
I'm,
make sure to keep
I'm keeping
talking
it
shit about
going.
me.
I'm keeping it going.
Yeah, good.
But how was your panel? You don't travel with us as much, right? So, had you? It was PAX last year. You were at? I forget.
Yeah, I was at PAX last year.
All right. Cool.
PAX was fun. I mean, I only went there for a day, but it was the ironic thing is I said is that I was already sick very early in the trip, so I didn't even get my. That's the fucking bullshit. I didn't even get the sickness from PAX.
But that's a good thing because
Yeah.
then we never would have heard the end of it. If you had been like, "Oh gosh, I was only PAX for an hour and I got sick,"
Yeah, I was getting sick 2 days before I even stepped foot on the floor.
Yeah,
but it
my
was
Fucking Dave Matthews.
but it was yeah.
Why
Got
don't
Dave,
you-
man, that bus ride was
Tell me about that. I want to know more about that.
So Aaron's a huge Dave Matthews fan. It's a religious experience for Dave Matthews Band fans to go see them at this place called The Gorge. It's this beautiful venue in like the middle of Washington, and it's like an amphitheater that overlooks this like huge canyon. It's a ridiculous place, in a good way.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's like I'm like it is in the middle of nowhere, really personified. You know, like we drove in the middle of nowhere for 2 hours before we even got there, and so I'm like, you know, it was a fun place. But I'm like, man, they really went out of their way to put this place where it was. But they end their tours there, and it's supposed to be like a big deal. And I'm a big music fan, and I like to do the, you know, for 311 fans, for instance, it's a religious experience to go to 311 Day, and everyone should do that once if you're a 311 fan. And so she's seen them almost 40 times, and I wanted to do this for her or whatever. She was never able to do it. So back in March, the tickets went on sale, and the tickets sell out very quickly. So I just randomly bought a day. There are 3 shows in a row, and actually people go and camp out, and most of the people stay there for all 3 shows. But I just bought one ticket, not knowing what her work schedule was going to be, and then kind of winged it. And then we found out later that PAX was going to be that weekend. So I was like, well, that's unfortunate because I would have gone to PAX. I actually like PAX and PAX East. So she organized this bus because you have to go or you have to drive and we didn't really want to do that or whatever. And the bus was it was full. Everyone was very nice, you know,
Yeah.
on the bus, but it was just full of all sorts of different kinds of people just drinking and
Are you doing the drugs?
getting inebriated or whatever. I didn't see any drug use on the bus.
No drugs.
I'm sure
Drugs are bad.
there was copious drug use absolutely at the show, yeah. So the bus ride it took us like almost, I want to say it took us like 5 hours to get there.
Holy shit.
Because it was a lot of Labor Day traffic going up. Back, it took about 3 hours.
They got bathrooms in this bus?
Yeah, they had a bathroom in the bus. I peed like when we were going like 70 miles an hour, and I'm all like, and there's actually like a funny picture of a guy like, there's a guy like this with a cowboy hat on, and it says an X through it, and then a guy sitting down on the toilet.
Nice.
And I was like, all right, I understand what you're trying to tell me. I learned the hard way.
Did you sit down from there on out?
No, sure didn't. I took a shit in that toilet too.
Sit
By the
down
way,
there?
sidebar, took a shit on the plane on the way to Seattle for the first time in hundreds of flights. I haven't
Yeah.
taken a poop on a plane.
Yeah.
But I had to go. I had to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, the show
Wait,
was
what was it? So how was it though? Was it fine? Was it as bad as you remember? Or was it everything went fine?
what?
The poop on the plane.
Oh no, it was fine. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
fine.
Double
it was
side
it was
note.
a relatively normal poop.
One time on a flight to Japan, I opened up the bathroom door that wasn't locked, and there was a small Indian gentleman, old man, very old man, sitting there taking
Having
a
a
poop.
poop?
Yeah, and he freaked out, and I shut the door, and then somebody immediately did it to him right afterwards because I went back to my seat.
Yeah, like,
well,
lock the
come on,
door,
man,
for
don't you know how to
God's
lock the
sake.
door? But it was a spacious bathroom too.
But yeah, so the show was fun or whatever, and then we had a good time. So I hung out with Nate when
Big
I was
Nate
there. Had dinner with him, and then we met up the next day for lunch, and then we went bowling, which is fun. So, story about bowling.
Wait,
I'm predominantly a lefty in sports, right? I play hockey lefty, I bat lefty, I throw lefty, and all that kind of stuff. But I've always bowled with my right hand. And I was like, I'm a decent bowler or whatever. And then Nate pointed out, he's like, shouldn't you bowl with your left hand? And I'm like, maybe it's because I was taught how to bowl like this, and I started bowling with my left hand and bowled much better.
Really?
Yeah.
The innate skills were there.
It's very weird.
Very weird.
Kind of
Very
a serious
weird.
thing.
Very weird.
Anyway, the show was fun. Seattle's beautiful. I really think you can make the case that Washington is maybe the most beautiful state in its own way, like because it has that very alpine, that very like rainy kind of thing. I really love it. I know it doesn't have the geographic diversity of say California, but it is just driving, almost all the way to, Spokane or whatever. It's like,
It's pretty legit.
it's a really beautiful place.
They have the Ferris wheel. We did
Yeah.
that. That was beautiful.
Ferris wheel is very nice. Come out over the water.
Yeah.
They say they're going to take you around 3 times. You can get 5 out of them, no problem.
Yeah, no, that's
Just keep
that's
on going.
real easy.
Yeah.
While we were going, I was trying to figure out the process of how they get people in and off of a Ferris wheel.
Right.
And it's more complicated than you'd think, because there needs to be if the people are up here, you can only get so many people on at a time.
Right.
So it's like you get in the 3. Does it go 1, 2, 3? Fill people up, fill people up, fill people up, fill people up. But then people are getting different experiences.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I figured it out.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Wow, that's big.
I did.
I never did. I thought about that for a second, and then I was
Yeah.
like, you know
And
what?
you're
I
like-
really don't give a shit enough about this.
I gave
to-
a lot of shits.
All right.
Okay,
Okay,
but what
good.
I gave even more shits about was Wings Over Washington, which let me tell you what, Call, you would have loved this thing. This thing was, if you think Washington's beautiful, that's all this was. If you've been on Soaring Over California,
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland, it's the same thing, but for Washington, which I guess people are interested in that. You get into these seats, and then you put the little seatbelt on, and there's like a giant screen that is like a half globe situation.
Sure.
So you're
So it's all
surrounded
around
by
you.
screen, and then you kind of go up, and then you like turn so you feel like you're flying. They blow wind at you,
Yeah.
and then as you go over the different areas, they'll put
Sense.
smells
Yeah.
and stuff. You go down the little water, a little kayak like splashes water up at you, and then you just get kind of like water all over your face.
Baby tears.
It was awesome though, and this one had some new weird 3D projection thing where there was this fucking eagle, because up there they love their totem poles.
Where
Yes, they
hell-
do.
Where was this that you guys went to this?
This is right by the Ferris wheel, right down by Pikes,
Place.
whatever. Yeah,
Oh,
Pikes
okay,
Place.
okay.
Yeah, so there was a totem pole in the beginning, and all of a sudden that motherfucking eagle became real and it pops up in real life, and it's like this 3D hologram projection thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. You follow the eagle through. But it was pretty janky because whoever did the video editing on it, like,
Hard
no
cuts.
thought about segues or anything, no transitions. It was just hard cut between like, now we're in the water, now we're in the trees. It's like, guys, come on, man.
Put some pride in your craft.
especially for the price of that thing.
How much was it?
It was like $20 a person. Some bullshit, man.
thank you.
It would have been worth $10 a
Here's
person.
why Wings Over Washington is utter fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm walking down there. I leave the Pikes Market. There's the Starbucks. There's the Flowers. There's a little comic shop I didn't make it to, but there's all these other things going on, right? They're home. This is where they're throwing the fish. You ever watch The Real World?
Yeah, it's
Real
on.
World Seattle, and they throw the fish, and he does this. That's where we're at, all right? But you go out the back, you get to these touristy things or whatever, and I see Wings Over Washington, and I'm like, fuck yeah, here we go. Here comes a local Seattle wing joint sports bar
Yeah.
with all the local brews and a whole bunch of great wings. And I get there, and it's some fucking
Nope,
goddamn...
it's a Disneyland ride.
I fucking hate this.
Minus the Disney magic.
Garbage.
It proved it to me. That's why Disneyland's awesome. And Wings Over Washington is just
But you had fun.
decent fun.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
no, it was great. It was a bit more technologically advanced than the Disneyland one, which
Sure.
I appreciated.
Sure.
But it was just, needs some more thought.
Since we're talking about PAX in such an abstract way and the way it changed our lives without us ever going to the show floor, let's for a second talk about Buffalo Blasters from Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, Sweet baby Jesus.
Have you ever had these, Colin? Have you ever had one of these things?
Yes.
He was there. He hates it when you forget him. Have you ever had a Buffalo Blaster?
I
from
don't know
Cheesecake?
that I have.
Because here's a truth.
Explain to me what it is. Maybe
If
I
I'm
have.
lying, I'm dying, ladies and gentlemen. I've never actually eaten at a Cheesecake Factory.
Really?
I think maybe once I walked in with somebody and they bought a cheesecake and we walked. I don't know,
Sure.
something like that.
Sure.
Maybe
Saw
it was an
over there.
event and they did the food there. I don't know what's happening. But you get there, and we went there because our friend Clark, aka Grimecraft, said, I want some Buffalo Blasters, and that's all I want. And him and Jen had them the year before, and
Okay.
they're making a big deal about these Buffalo Blasters. I'm like, well, what is a Buffalo Blaster? And they're talking to me about it. It's like buffalo chicken, deep fried. So like, the cheese in there and the buffalo chicken
Sure.
and deep fried. And so it sounds like, okay, cool. I've had buffalo egg rolls before, and this is gonna be the same kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm in. Don't get me wrong. We get there. Mouth water when I talk about it. I'm sorry. We get there. Big old crew of us, right? What, 8 total people there? That's how many we got? 8 people.
Solid 8.
We get there, and Grimecraft's like, well, I want my own thing of Buffalo Blasters. Like, that's how committed to the Buffalo. That's all I want to eat. I don't want a main course. I just want Buffalo Blasters. I'm like, well, fuck. If they're that good, we need a bunch because everybody's going to try these. And so we order 4 orders of Buffalo Blasters. Everything sounds like it's going to be great. Other people start.
I'm getting scared right now.
Tim negotiates to get his burger on a bagel. Something, and now,
The day before, Kevin and Gia were like, I'll be goddamned if I don't get a strawberry daiquiri.
Yeah.
So we're like, we got to find this. We went to like 5 different places like where Kevin was asking for these goddamn strawberry daiquiris.
Yeah.
Eventually, we go to
Cheesecake
Factory. They deliver in spades. We get a whole bunch of them. I look over to the guy next to me. He's eating a burger, but that burger's on a bagel. I love burgers. I love bagels. I knew I wanted that. So we go here. You're all trying to be like, we're just getting appetizers or are we getting real meals?
I was
I'm
trying
like,
to.
no.
We had a double date at a nice restaurant that night. I didn't want to blow it on. I want to know how much food we should appropriately eat here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I, insisted I get my little burger bagel.
Yeah.
Which was
And
fantastic.
but the woman's like, that doesn't happen.
She said that's
That
not
you
a
didn't
thing.
See
And I'm like,
that.
I saw it.
So what I propose, Colin, is that in one of those "Are You Afraid of the Dark" moments, Tim saw future him eating the burger he would eat the next day over there on a bagel. But he gets it and he takes 2 bites of it and it's delicious, but he's already full.
It was great.
Because the waiter comes over and puts down 2 giant plates of Buffalo Blasters. And it turns out, I'm thinking these things are like cheddar poppers. They're like these triangles. Like they're like crab rangoon,
okay.
but they're buffalo chicken. And they are among the best things I've ever eaten in
Nick,
my life. But he puts the
you'd
2
love
down
them.
and they're heaping piles. And I'm like, are these all 4 orders combined into 2? And he's like, oh no, this is half of them. And then he went and got more, and like we were swimming in Buffalo Blasters.
So you brought some home for me?
No, we took them to the signing we did at the Rooster Teeth booth and gave them out to the kids.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fun
yeah.
too. Nothing like a surprise Buffalo Blaster when you're waiting in line.
Kids
for
were
a
we
signing.
got kids blasted at PAX.
You did.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
blasted
yeah.
some kids.
Right in their mouths.
Right in their
fucking
fucking
mouths.
Those things were like life changing though.
Yeah.
They were so good.
Colin,
I'm
are
never
we
gonna
lying or
get
dying?
anything else there.
They were
ever.
very tasty.
Yeah.
I like Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah?
I haven't been there in years, but yeah.
I don't like Cheesecake Factory. Like I've never had
Really?
great food there. Yeah, I've always had issues.
But did
with
this change it?
million things to order? They all taste like shit. This changed my mind.
Yeah.
These things were.
Yeah, their menu's too big. I mean,
It's too big.
That was like my my date spot in college because that was all I could afford. You know, like I didn't know anything about
That
nice
was
food. I didn't know
fancy in
anything, I didn't know
college,
anything
though.
about. Yeah, I mean, I used to go there once every few weeks, and
Yeah,
was like-
damn
and-
right you were.
and
New
that was
girl every 3 weeks.
yeah,
Simo away.
So it was like that was that always reminds me of that. So I haven't had it in many years because that's kind of like I remember this huge menu of ridiculous amount of options,
Yeah.
way too many options. You can cut this menu literally, and 1/10 of this menu would still be too big, but they insist on having everything possible. The one thing I wanted to see, so they own, I think Aaron and I were talking about this. We're pretty sure that they own those Lux Cafe things, or whatever, in Vegas.
Oh,
You know the one in the Venetian,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
another one. Like we're pretty sure that that's the same
Might be the
company,
same restaurant group,
And
yeah.
I'm like, I want because like it's pretty much the same menu if you really
they
look
got
at it.
fucking Buffalo Blasters.
And I was like, I want a glimpse into their kitchen because it must be a goddamn shit show in there. Like it must be. There must be a guy that just does the pastas, right? There must be a guy that just does the burgers, and there must be a guy that does the pizzas and all. I'm like, it must be an insane kind of.
I bet, yeah, probably.
And the conventional wisdom in the food world is that you really don't make money on food. You make it on drinks. And these guys somehow do volume in food to such a degree that it's like a grocery store. Like their margin is like 4%, right? If you're Cheesecake Factory and you're selling that much food, 4% of your margin is actually a lot of money. So I would just really be interested to see the back end of how a restaurant like that runs as opposed to a restaurant like Nopa that has 10 appetizers and 7 entrees
Yeah.
and then a full bar, like which is really the appropriate way that you're supposed to,
You got, the thing I always get reminded of when I go to a Cheesecake Factory, though, is I'm like, there's 500 things on this menu. No way any of this stuff is fresh. Not at all. It's all shipped to them frozen. Everything's getting fried. That's pretty much it.
Sure.
'Cause you have to assume half that stuff.
I
is
feel
just
like that's every chain restaurant though.
Yeah, but I mean,
Chili's ain't out there picking the tomatoes off the vine.
I mean, Chili's is don't talk badly about Chili's. God bless Chili's. We love it. No, it's not fresh at all. Applebee's, same thing. It probably all
Applebee's,
the
come
food
on.
gets shipped to them in like the same style package. It's just a frozen package. They rip it open and throw it in a fryer.
And there's a major difference between fresh food and that kind of food, although I didn't know that when I was younger. But Cheesecake Factory is appropriately priced, and I think you kind of get what you pay for there. It was weird to be back there because I hadn't gone in many years. But
Now, are they a Pepsi restaurant or a Coca-Cola restaurant?
I think they are a
Coke.
Pepsi. Are they Coke
They're
restaurant?
Coke.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I remember the one thing I do remember from last time I ate at a Cheesecake Factory was that the sodas are huge. They give you. They're like this big. And I
No,
remember-
ours wasn't.
Were they not? No.
No,
like,
maybe
the last couple I
because it was
had in
packed.
California, I guess, were. I mean, they were. It was like a fucking.
I felt like
big
my
old
Coke was
glass.
really big. I mean, we're all the same size. Maybe it's
Well,
all
Tim's got
relative.
big hands.
I just like Coke.
I will say as an aside, today we went and got ramen. That ramen place is like 1/4 as good as the place we usually go. By the way, I just
Sure.
want to throw that out there.
I thought it was good though. I didn't think
it was
nearly as
fine.
good.
It was okay. You know,
I'd eat there again.
But Yeah, I probably eat there again too because I'm profoundly lazy about finding food. But I ordered a Pepsi just to piss Tim off because I saw it in the thing. But I was telling Kevin it backfired on me completely because Pepsi's usually fine, but this was real sugar Pepsi, and I was like, "Fuck, I hate that shit." You know, and I didn't realize until I had already
Pepsi-
opened it. I didn't want to have some sort of conversation with a woman there about like, this is not, we're in America, we drink, Pepsi with fructose corn syrup. It's a whole thing. So.
Well, I think it might be harder to find that than you think, though, because I was up. I ordered a Diet Coke this weekend. They gave me a Diet Pepsi. That's all I had, unfortunately. At this place I was at, and I guess the can said no, we don't use aspartame anymore. So everything's. I guess they've switched over some of their sweeteners, which I wouldn't know because I'm not a Pepsi historian, nor will I ever be. But that was an interesting change of events. It was not good. I still don't like Diet Pepsi. And I prefer that someone take all the cans of Diet Pepsi and just shot put them into the fucking sun.
Throw them into space.
Yeah, throw those things into
don't need
space.
them.
They're useless.
Yeah.
Fucking Colorado, everywhere you go in Denver. Diet
there was
Pepsi
something else we
okay?
were gonna
No,
throw
it's
into
not
space once.
okay. What's that?
I feel like there was something else we were going to throw into space once.
Seems like we probably would have cut that out of the show. Trying to make an emergency landing on this plane and topic. PAX.
Yeah.
Video games, I saw a bunch on Monday. We'll talk about it in the Games Cast this week. I hosted a whole bunch of other panels. I was on the Podcast Beyond panel. That was great. Hosted a whole bunch of Square ones. Of course, Square sent us up there again, so we did Deus Ex Go. Kevin was the GoPro. Got to play and put a bunch of marshmallows in his mouth. He was fantastic at that.
That's what he does.
Yeah, it's what he does. Did the Deus Ex Mankind Divided panel with the voice cast. That was great. But most importantly was you hosted your first panel of all
I
time.
did.
South Park.
I wouldn't say that's most importantly.
I am. I'm allowed to say
Oh,
that.
I appreciate
I am
that.
in charge of the company.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a lot of fun, and I thank you all that came out to support me because that was really cool because they could have went to your guys' way more fun panel. Ours was a bit more, talking about the game.
Sure.
Or whatever. But it was cool. It was a very different experience for me, but I enjoyed talking to the panelists and like in the way that you have the relationship with these people.
Yeah.
We go to all these lunches with you all the time, and I'm like, I don't know who the hell they are, but it's like you have all these like in jokes and stuff. It's like I like the hour I spent with them before the panel made me really comfortable doing the panel.
Good.
Because I could just be like,
You already had an
shit.
established relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And also there was a nice amount of our people out in the crowd.
100%.
So,
Yeah. Well,
being
South
there
Park,
for
that's
me,
going to draw.
holding it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for all your support at PAX. You were fantastic. You came to that. You came to the meet and greet. You came to the party. We threw a party, of
Party
course.
was so awesome.
Hard Rock with the Deus Ex Go folks. That was a really good one.
Yeah.
Crimecraft played there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Killed it.
Killed it. As usual. As usual. But yeah, thank you so much for PAX, ladies and gentlemen. All right, my topic. Now, my topic starts in one place. Is going to go somewhere else, right?
Really?
Because, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, it was a joke.
Yeah.
Because you're saying we get off. You want to go get some more coffee?
I want you to
kind of do.
explain what a topic is before you even do this topic in
Spell it.
excruciating, minute amount of detail.
One day, Colin, you're going to see the
getting
Sandman,
coffee.
and now you have information to tell the Sandman. Do you understand that?
I want you to
That's how
pretend
much
like you're
I
the
just told you.
Gordon Wood of podcasting and just write as much as you can about this one topic.
So at PAX,
Yes.
I was having a conversation. And what it came up, it's a two-part conversation. They might have been two separate conversations. I believe they're both at the party where I talked to a million different people. Tim, you're fact-checking all this. It looks
I'm
like
trying
you're,
to figure out
you're
how
rubbing it through
the
the
source
brain.
of this. Good. Just keep going.
We came up talking about what people want written on their tombstones. And at some point, I think I threw it out there of like, it'd be fucked up in like one of those like, $1 million butt situations, but not that much money because that isn't that big of a deal. Who the fuck cares what's written on your tombstone?
Yeah.
Would be the fact that what's written on your tombstone is whatever your pinned tweet is. And we all thought that was really funny. And I'm like, I'm going to write that down as a topic. So I wrote that down as a topic. And then I went through our pinned tweets and none of them are that good. Ours are all self-promotionally, right? Mine right now is no hashtag PS I love you XOXO because Wednesday and I run through what's happening for PlayStation meeting. Collins is episode 2 of hashtag Ask Colin Anything is here. Please enjoy and keep the questions.
Ask Colin anything.
That's not- is that what I said?
No, that's what I say.
Oh, okay.
It bothers Kevin.
Oh, hashtag? Yeah, that's not real. That's not a real hashtag. Keep the questions coming. Oh, and you're welcome. And then Tim's is follow me. Your Instagram, Tim Geddes. Your Vine, Tim Geddes. Your Periscope, Tim Geddes. Your Snapchat, Tim
Everyone
Geddes.
at Tim Geddes.
Everywhere.
Simple.
And so I was like, okay, maybe it's just us. I went to Kevin's pin tweet. No, there's none. Went to Nick's. No, there's no pin tweet. Use your microphone. Use your big boy voice if you're gonna get in here.
For a while, the pin tweet was the one to Patrick Stewart.
Oh,
gone
yeah, I
now.
remember that. That's cute. Then I was like, all right, maybe it's just that we're not that creative. Went to a whole bunch of our friends, your Kevin Smiths, your other directors, our industry friends. Not many people putting stuff up. So I went to Mike Drucker. Mike Drucker's was good. It's the pin tweet joke. I wish I could get bitten by a radioactive, confident person. That's funny. That'd be a good thing to have.
Very accurate
That'd be
for
a good
his-
Mike Drucker tombstone, right?
Yeah.
And then I went to Danny O'Dwyer's, and his is just a picture of him outside the White House drinking a Taco Bell cup that says "Live the VIP life." Also, that'd be a good photo for your tombstone.
Or just live the VIP life. I think it's a good.
No, he has to have the photo.
I don't know.
I'm telling you as the man who.
Can you? How do you do? You mean like what on
They
this?
etch it
like
in.
the
Yeah, they
etching?
etch it in.
Holy shit.
That'd be cool, right?
Okay.
So then I was
So
like,
does mine get mine? Mine has a vine in it of the fat Pikachu stuffing himself through the door.
we don't have that kind of tombstone technology.
By
yet.
the time I die, do you expect that we will?
That's a great point, actually. I do think, we'll have video tombstones by then, don't you, Colin?
Maybe can we have like one of those?
Probably.
Are they lithograms? Where like
Hologram?
If you look at it
yeah.
from the different perspectives, it does that thing.
Sure. Now, here's what's interesting. I did all this research, and I was like, man, this is a shitty topic. Won't do this one. But then it reminded me of a similar conversation I was having, and I don't think it was with the same person again. But basically, this person was saying, I wish I spoke like Mark Twain. I wish I said stuff that was quotable, and you would remember it, and people would say it, and all these different things. You remember this?
I now remember the conversations. It's irrelevant to this conversation. But
Thank you
yes.
very much. To which I remember thinking, but I think I was getting out of the conversation. I didn't bring it up. I wonder if those people still exist, but it's like everything else. There's too much content. Just like so many people come up to us and they're like, man, I'm a big fan of Kind of Funny. I'm weeks behind on the shows, though. I haven't seen this or I haven't seen that. Or like, I really loved you guys. I got a lot of this the next day. Hey, you were great on the Let's Play panel last night. I'm going to check you guys out, but I don't know when I'll fit you in all this different stuff. In the same way, does our access to information and our access to quotes and our the ability that maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of those guys who should be quotable and you should remember forever and ever. But the fact that he has a Twitter and he is in a video and he's on CNN and he's doing this thing and he's in fucking Batman v Superman, is it the amount of content getting put out that's watering down the pool, you think? And that's the reason that Mark Twain is so remembered is because his library of work is so much smaller. That is my question.
Yes. The two most quotable people in American history are Ben Franklin and Mark Twain.
Kanye West. Oh, sorry,
And Kanye West. And they both existed in a time when a lot of people couldn't even read. And then even less so Mark Twain's time than Ben Franklin's time,
Yeah.
but there was an illiterate part of the population. And then people read newspapers or had books like Poor Richard's Almanac and stuff like that. And Ben Franklin even ghost wrote stuff or like Silence Do Good and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I really do think it's Mark Twain. It was Ben Franklin's like a legend. In his time, Ben Franklin was a fucking legendary man, like a Renaissance man. Him and Thomas Jefferson both.
We should have listened to him about the turkey.
We should have. The turkey should have been the national bird, which would have been awesome. So I just think that like he had incredible reverence. Like we have no Americans except for maybe Lincoln and maybe to a degree FDR, but much lesser degree than the way people felt about literally 20 people that were alive at the same time.
Sure. Like Churchill.
Well, Churchill in Britain, but I'm saying Americans in.
Oh, I thought you were saying the way we only thought about these couple people that way, the way the rest of the world thought about these other people.
No. I'm saying that like in America, like Franklin resonated with people long before he was a founder because he was, but his lasting reverence was because he was indeed like a founder and an elite diplomat of the cause. And then I think Twain was, Twain, everyone loves Mark Twain, but I feel like that's another thing. If Mark Twain existed today, Mark Twain probably wouldn't even really be fully an author. He'd probably do podcasts and. Mark Twain was just smart, right? He was a man of his time. So I think that like we would have just consumed him in a different way, but I think he would have been overshadowed by everything else. That's why, I was reading about the moon landings this weekend and we were talking about them in the car last week. And, 500 million people in 1969 watched the moon landing live. And with the exception of like the Super Bowl and a few other things, like you're never going to have that kind of engagement. In fact, if we went back to the moon or we went to Mars, I bet you the number of people watching it would be about equivalent compared to the global population is today or whatever.
Wait, did you watch the documentary that's on Netflix right now about that?
No, we were talking about it. That's why I just started reading. I was just in bed and I was reading it.
It's an older documentary. I think it was made in like 2007 or 9, but it's a Ron Howard documentary about literally just chronicles those years where between the time that Kennedy was like, hey, by the end of the decade.
From Earth to the Moon? No, that was dramatization, wasn't it? Yeah,
that was a series. This was, I forget what it's called. I'll look it up in a
no,
second. But it was really cool because they just talked to all the surviving astronauts. And they were like, what, tell us. It's basically just about that first landing.
Yeah.
And like the events that led up to it, and then a few of the events that led to, another attempt at it. And they like, it doesn't really focus on Apollo 13, anything like that. It's
Sure.
just about the Apollo 11 mission. It's really good.
Because, we don't want to hear about the losers.
We can't even get there.
I mean, they made it
Flew
back.
right by
I mean,
it.
they did go there and they did figure
Flew right
out
by it.
They actually flew around it, and the if they flew right by, they'd still be flying to this day. So thank God they didn't fly right by. Apollo 13 is fascinating just because they fixed that ship with the shit they had on.
No, I love Apollo 13. I'm just fucking
no, it's okay. You don't like space. It's fine.
I like
so
Jim
what
Lovell.
I would challenge
I like Jim Lovell.
What I would challenge people with the conventional wisdom about, if we still have a Ben Franklin today and we still have a Mark Twain today, then like all you have to do is name them, and you can't. You know,
And
like,
that- so
and,
here's
and
my-
that's, and I'm not saying you. I'm just saying
No,
like
no,
someone's
no,
out there
no.
like, of course, and I'm like, no, you just can't. Like,
And that's the thing. They exist, right? Great. Do you think the great
those kinds
great-
of minds exist, but not to the extent that
Of course.
the mid to late 19th century people held Twain and into the 20th century, and the way 18th century people felt about Franklin.
100%.
No way.
He just said all the good stuff first.
There's that for sure. There's something to be said for that. But I think the fact that do you think that there's more great minds like them too, and that's the other reason that you don't that nobody stands out.
Yeah, there's more. The dissemination of that kind of stuff is important. There's
Yeah.
definitely great minds, way more than there were back then.
Brock Lesnar,
Brock Lesnar's definitely up there with his terrible chest tattoo.
his one mistake.
But I can't stop staring at that tattoo.
It's terrible.
But to me, I feel like, yeah, there are greater minds out there in the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nobel Prize winners, great scientists, great historians, great philosophers and stuff like that. But because I don't think we have an intellectual curiosity the way they used to, because that's all they had back in the day,
Yeah.
like to entertain themselves. And I think there's one part of that as well. I mean, imagine a world where like you got your newspaper, your evening newspaper. It's 1780, right? You have you get home from work. You have your evening newspaper. You're eating dinner with your family. Let's say you live the middle class didn't exist then, but you have a couple kids. You live a comfortable life. You're
Got some candles.
yeah, you're a tradesman of some sort, so you have like a somewhat comfortable life. You get home, you light some candles. Your kids go to bed after doing probably their home tutoring or whatever. You're sitting there with your wife. You have a fucking newspaper. Whatever books you have are there. The nearest neighbor's a half a mile away.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's fucking dark out, and you have nothing except for to read and to talk, and that's it. So
Yeah.
of course someone like Ben Franklin is going to fucking resonate.
Yeah.
Of course Mark Twain later on in a pretty much identical situation is going to resonate. Today it's like, no, you listen to the radio, you can listen to music at your computer. When it was nighttime until a few hundred years ago, everyone went to bed. Like
You're not going to see. There's no iPad to keep you going. No, nothing to
I
watch.
go to bed at night.
No,
It's
you
silly.
hate that. Tim, does this matter? Does this scare you? Or does this
No, I mean, because I think that there is more people doing things that of at least great quality.
Yeah.
Which means we don't need people doing things at, perfect quality, right? Where it's like, I feel like things of this type matter a lot more when you get a lot of 9 out of 10s and like a lot of 9 out of 10s instead of 2 10 out of 10s.
Sure.
And I do think that it's almost at that level. Like just even thinking about this, it's like, what quotes are that important? You know what I mean? When you think about like any of them, right? And then who can we attribute them to? And I feel like there's some quotes that I know, like just in my head thinking, what are the best quotes, or what quotes do people always repeat? I don't know who said a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like the dance like nobody's watching thing. What's that?
That was Jesus. That's from the Bible.
Jesus
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah, he was like water, wine, boom, everybody dance.
that was in
Footloose.
Letters to the Corinthians,
Footloose, yeah.
I believe.
Corinthians
Dance
9.
like no one is watching.
nobody is
Love
watching.
like you've never been hurt.
I mean, I feel like a lot of that nowadays comes to like poetry stuff, right? Where it is people that are trying to be very flowery with their words. You know what I mean? They're
Sure.
like trying to very concisely say something very meaningful and very broad. And I think that is a bit more niche, So it's like
Sure.
those aren't as like
I mean,
widespread.
that's totally the thing too. I think when you talk about artists to an extent, when you talk about writers to an extent, when you're talking, like, you know what I mean, and poets for sure. Like, Maya Angelou, right, is like our national treasure. But it's like, who else? And then you're in school and you feel like when I was in school, you're reading all this poetry that is so much older, right, and is
Yeah.
from a different time.
Yeah.
There's just such an influx of content. You know what I mean? Where there's got to be people writing better plays right now than Shakespeare, but you never
Oh,
hear
yeah,
about them.
dude.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, was that Shakespeare. Well, first of all, Shakespeare's fucking awesome. Shakespeare is fucking ubiquitously awesome. It's awesome stuff. But and a little known fact, I don't know if I ever really talked about it. I starred in I didn't star, but I acted in a couple
Macbeth.
of Shakespeare plays.
Who were you in? What play?
Taming of the
Hamlet. I was in
Shrew.
Hamlet,
Who were
and
you?
I was
You the skull?
King Claudius, I think, was Hamlet, right? He was a character in Hamlet, right? Because I was in Hamlet and I was in, I want to say Richard III. Or something like that. I took this in 6th grade. I just had to do. I don't know. I don't even know how the fuck I ended up in these things. It was fun though.
At one point, I think I did a scene from Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think I think if I remember correctly, I wasn't Nick Bottom, but I wanted to be because I was like Natch,
Nick.
Natch.
Yeah.
Nick, and I like bottoms.
Yeah, there you go.
Made no sense.
I did. What was it? 12th night. 12th night.
12th night.
12th night. Yeah. I did something in that, and I had to do that. The love soliloquy. And I had to memorize that. Beautiful
Classic.
writing. Like that's the type of stuff where it's like, I think that there are a lot of people doing that nowadays. It's just, and I'm not in school now, so I don't really know what they're teaching the kids. But for me, it was Maya Angelou and Shakespeare and all this stuff. But I'm sure that there is a lot of people that look at like Tupac, for example, and like things that he said. I guarantee there's classes dissecting the lyrics of those songs and stuff like that. And I think that, what is the difference there? I think it's all very contextual of what they're talking about applies to the experiences that they had. But it's the ones that stand above that you can kind of take something from and apply it to others. And that's why Shakespeare, I think, is so, you look at The Lion King, it's just Hamlet, but with a different coat of paint. But that's why it's so important.
Right?
Is that
I didn't know that either.
Is that those
Blew my
things?
Who was Timon and Pumbaa in
Timon and Pumbaa?
Yeah, who were they in Hamlet?
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, probably. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's genius.
So-
I did not even put that together until right now.
But yeah, I mean,
Fucking Disney. Ripping
Right,
shit
no,
off.
Fucking have an original idea, you pieces of shit.
But I think that that's the thing is like, though, it's those core ideas that are why what we're talking about is that.
Yeah.
Right. Is that thing that you can take and apply, whether it's 2016 or 1016. It's still, there's something there.
But to that point too, there could be no Shakespeare today. Like Shakespeare was a product, a highly illiterate fucking society at that time that saw these plays and word of mouth like went through, and like no one even. There were people that weren't contemporary to Shakespeare, never heard of him, that eventually heard of him generations later, and people are finding like original things that he wrote and all this kind of stuff years later, and that all existed because of that zeitgeist at the time that like people went to plays and they were like and it was just a slow burn, kind of like VR is going to be, I think. But
VR
but there
is
could
Shakespeare.
be no Shakespeare today because it would be like think about like the great plays today or the last 20 years. Like The Producers is a great example. Right? Like everyone loves Mel Brooks, right? Like Mel Brooks is fucking awesome. He's the man. But even The Producers' dominance, and it's one of the most dominant plays in Broadway history, like is nowhere near like the level of like what Shakespeare was all about for hundreds of years.
No,
so like even at that zeitgeist, or like it's
still
funny to
doing
say, but
those
even like
plays on-
Cats in the 80s or something, or Rent and like all these things in the 90s and
Sure. But
and Hamilton is a good example. No one's going to talk. I'm telling you right now, no one's going to talk about Hamilton in 2 years. But if something like and Hamilton's awesome, by the way. Like I know it is. I know people love it. I'm not trying to talk shit about it. I listen to a few of the songs, and it's great. The point is that there is too much competition because Shakespeare was all that those people had. Like what else were they going to? Like what else were they going to do? Like I don't know. I just feel like these are all products, the things these share, the products of simpler times that have passed the test of time. But for every poet or whatever we talk about, like Edgar Allan Poe or an Alexander Pope from those times, there are a million that we don't talk about too that were probably important at that time. So you even have to pass through that granular kind of sieve of history to and there's only a few left, and I don't think that we're gonna have much of those from today.
But I think now it's like you look at movies and stuff like that. And I think movies are the thing that are finally kind of getting to that point where it's like you say there can't be a Shakespeare. It's like, all right, well, there can be a James Cameron or there can be a George Lucas, and all that stuff where it's like talking about quotes, do or do not, there is no try. That is one of those examples of things where it's like we see it as pop culture, but I guess back then Shakespeare was pop culture, right?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
So I think that like that's the type of thing that generations from now people can take that and make The Lion King out of it.
My dude Lawrence Kasdan,
Colin.
those words. Yeah.
What's your topic?
So I was thinking about like kind of conventional advice that your parents gave you, or things that they said to you when you were a kid and you rolled your eyes or just kind of went one ear out the other, and then you kind of think about it today and you're like, oh, they were right. And there's a lot of things that my parents told me that they were absolutely right about.
Oh no, I had to sit down with my mom one time. We were, it was, I think I may have been in my mid-20s at this point, possibly had already moved up to San Francisco, and I was just like, I got to tell you something. It pains me to say this. You were right about everything. And I remember that thinking, I think I'm an adult now because I finally see my parents' perspective on all the stupid shit that I did when pre-adult times, were occurring. It's just the way it goes. Like my parents were always, my mom would just say stuff, and no matter what, I would just be like, I'm going to disagree with you right now because you don't know what you're talking about. And she'd be like, I do, because I've lived on this planet 20 years longer than you have, or 30 years longer than you have. Like my perspective does matter. It's one of those fascinating things.
Yeah, I think that like my parents were wrong about things. There's no doubt about that. I often think about, I've told the story I think about at some point. I don't know if I've ever did it on this show about how my dad, when I moved here a couple of years after I moved here, so like maybe in 2008, 2009, went out to dinner with him or whatever, and he apologized to me because he's like, when I was 12 and 13 through until I was in college, I was really obsessed with internet culture and like gaming culture, and I was writing facts on GameFAQs and like writing for small websites and like just spending all my money on games and all immersing myself in that kind of stuff. And then, like when I wasn't playing hockey or at school, that's basically all I did. And he was like, I really thought you were wasting your time, and he's like, you were so smart and like you were a good writer and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, like, why aren't you writing things that matter? Like you take your time to read all of this great stuff, but then you're writing about video games and you're doing all this stuff. And he's like, I was just totally wrong about like what you were doing and stuff. And you often brought up like, I would be on computers, my computer in my room so much at my old Sony Vaio that my keyboard had no letters on it. Like it was totally blank because I had like worn them away. And he often brings that up. He's like, it's just an amazing thing that you had like these eroded keys on this thing. You were writing these things that ultimately ended up really mattering to people and got you this job and this career, but I didn't believe in you, and so I'm sorry. But then I'd also turn into a conversation about the things he was right about. And when I talk, my mom was full of much more like practical, like heartfelt advice about love, for instance, about like, I remember when I had a really heartbreaking experience in college, like really devastating experience. And I remember her telling me, she came to my dorm room, and I was like I was like totally in terrible shape. And she's like, I promise you, like it will get better. Like it will get better. And that's why I always tell people that too. Like when they write into us, I'm like, dude, I remember. It was there was like nothing but a void in front of me when it happened, but it does get better. And so she was more into like these little anecdotes and little like, it's just trust me, it's gonna be fine. We'll get through this together. But my dad was much more a big picture, like, and I think shaped who I was. And when I think about the things that he told me that he was right, my dad used to always say 2 words to me all the time when we would listen to the news or like watch news, and he would just say, pay attention. That's like all he would say is like, pay attention. And he was right. It's important to pay attention. And he would often rail about taxes and onerous government, which we still deal with today, and all these kinds of things. And that's very much for my dad. And he was right about those things. We all experienced it as business owners with our taxes. We got destroyed last year by taxes. And he was right about those kinds of things. He's trying to build a house out east in Long Island, and he's had that land for 18 months, but he's dealing with a bureaucratic nightmare that like will not let him build the house that he wants to build there or whatever. And like all these things kind of come to fruition. You realize, wow, this man really knows what he's talking about. Like it sounds like kind of, my dad just being my dad, but at the same time it helped shape who I was. And he was right about those things. For all the times he was wrong about the games or I had a terrible temper in hockey and all that kind of stuff. He taught me a lot about how to control those things. But I often think about his advice to just pay attention to like what was going on around you and politically and in terms of those things will open up a lot of doors and open up a lot of eyes. So I want to thank him for that. But that's one of the things that I think about when I think about the things my parents told me that I kind of rolled my eyes at the time. What did I care about taxes when I was 12? I didn't believe in taxes when I was 12 because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be as a young conservative or whatever, learning from my dad. But I realized that's what I was. It's just, and then when you really get slammed over and over and over again by it, then you realize, yeah, the man was right. Like, you work hard and they take it all from you. He wasn't just saying it.
It's true.
Yeah. So
they figure out a way.
Yep. So that's my contribution to this topic.
Timmy?
I'm struggling hard to find like an actual concrete thing,
right,
as an example of this. I mean, I think kind of in line with it, I feel like I was lucky enough that like I trusted my mom like from the beginning. Like she's been wrong about a whole bunch, for sure. But overall, in terms of advice and in terms of like how to live and like the thing of teaching me like what to do to be a good person and to like get things done and to believe in myself, which will then allow things to happen. My mom's a hippie, San Francisco, born and raised, like in the 50s, 60s, like all that stuff. Like she is as hippie as it gets. And she kind of instilled a lot of those values on me. That I guess is my thing of like, I used to make fun of her for it. You know what I mean? Like with Kevin, like we would always like think it was funny that my mom was a hippie because hippies were this like Halloween costume. You know what I mean? Sure.
Peace,
so it was always such a funny thing to think about in that way. But it's like all that stuff that she taught me, like I think about my life and I think about like my mom never had to tell me to do my homework. I just did my homework.
Yeah.
Like it eventually like I felt like I got enough support and just like push in the direction of things I wanted to do that why would I give my mom more problems than necessary? Like she let me play video games. She supported me playing video games. Like she saw that there was some value in it. Like my mom was even more than me about video games educating you. Like she thought it was so awesome that I was stoked playing Mario Paint. You know, like she thought that was like a good use of my time.
Yeah.
You know, it had the music creation thing, and it had the like just art stuff and being able to draw and stuff. And she saw value in that. She saw value in art, which is such a hippie thing because there's not really value in art. But she just kind of believed in it. You know, she just kind of let me do my thing, let me make stupid videos, let me, you know, like helped try to support getting like camcorders and all that stuff. And it really just comes back to like she said stuff and I listened and I like kind of took it. And I always, even when I was younger, I remember thinking like, I need to respect this. Like I need to prove to her that she's right because she's given me such a good push and stuff. And in a direction that I think, like, to be honest, like my mom was real easy on me. Like it's not like I've been a great person forever. You know what I mean? And like, not that I'm necessarily one now, I'm trying, but it's like, I think that, like I definitely owe her a lot for being right about a lot of that stuff. And I don't think she necessarily would have been right for anybody, but she was right for me.
Sure.
So
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's similar for me. Of like, I can't think of concrete advice, you know what I mean, that has stuck with me, or things that my parents were saying back when I was a kid that didn't. I listened and I did what I was told. And, you know, I mean, I was an easy kid, right? Like I wanted to draw my comics, or I wanted to read comics or play games or whatever. And it was that thing, you know, I think my mom mentioned it on The Exclusive, and she's mentioned it before, right? And the fact that like she would get shit from other parents because like, yeah, we backyard wrestled at our house, or I would take a day off to go play the new wrestling game or whatever. And she's like, well, he's doing all the other work. He's checking through all the boxes we're asking of him, right? I mean, advice that I didn't listen to or that they were right about probably is going to sound loaded, but it isn't. I think they knew I was too young to get married right after college. You know what I mean? I think they understood in a way I didn't yet that the world had changed. You know what I mean? The fact of like how young they were when they get married, and then the Midwest trend of what was happening. And I think they both saw that like, you kids don't seem like you're perfect for each other, but we're not going to stand in your way either. You know, because that's not. There's no easy way to have that conversation
Absolutely
and not
not.
have it totally be like, well, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, sadly, that was a lesson I had to learn, I think, on my own. And you heard other people not talking about my scenario, but other people were like, oh, you shouldn't get married before you're 30 or 28 or whatever, when you're an adult, right? And like, when you're 22 and in love, you're like, well, that doesn't apply to me. That doesn't apply to us. And I think that was one of those things of like, you're gonna make your own decisions here, and we're gonna help you. They were awesome and stuff like that. But it was like, I think they knew. You know what I mean? Like, I think they understood, but there's no way really to do anything about that because you have to let your kids make your own mistakes.
Yeah, I think I had the opposite of what you two were talking about. My mom was very, very vocal about any time anything was going wrong or she felt something was going awry in my life. Specifically, I think not necessarily me, because I think I had the luxury of learning a lot from my brother, who he went through a lot of stuff early on, you know, with women and various different things. I don't want to get too much into his life, but you know, I think he made a few mistakes or went down a few different roads that I wouldn't have. But I benefited from watching him do that and then have to, you know, put his life back together. But my mom my mom and I always had a good relationship in that she would talk to me like I was an adult, right? We would sit there and have conversations about what was happening in his life or my life or anyone's lives, and we would actually just talk about them. There was no pretenses. There was no
hiding the truth from you.
Yeah, it was like you know, because I was always a pretty mature kid. I was exactly like you guys were probably, where it was like, I'm getting my shit done.
Yeah.
I was not that much of a problem kid, aside from, you know, a car accident here and there or something, a ticket or, you know, the normal shit. But it wasn't like she never had to worry about me. She'd always say that. I never had to worry about Nikki.
And that's a good point. Matt. That was the same thing with my mom, right? Yeah. Where it was this totally honest about whatever was going on.
So, you know, my mom was, she would say things and be like, I think honestly your brother's making a mistake. And I'd be like, well, you know, and I not having that perspective would argue with her or say, you know, I think, you know, if it was over a woman, I'd be like, he's in love, it's not a big deal, yada, yada, yada. And then when that blew up, she'd be like,
8-year-old Nick's just there.
Well, I mean, you know, I was only 5 years before I'm only 4 years younger than my brother. So when he was, you know, 22 and contemplating getting engaged, I was 18 and thinking like, I don't know if this is a great idea. And she would, my mom, God bless her, and you guys maybe can understand this in me, is that the message is always there. The delivery method for the message is always a little crazy when it comes to Elena Scarpino. And so, you know, she would be very passionate about things that were going wrong in our lives, and she would tell us that in spades. And eventually you'd get to a point where you're like, fuck, I have to admit to myself and to my mother that she was right about this stuff. You know, she was right about various different things that blew up in my life. On the other side of that was my dad, who is he's a really good guy also, and he was the one that would always. He sort of tried to, for the longest time, instill in me what the merit of hard work was, and what it really meant to, like, fix your own brakes or change your own oil or wash your own car, just things like that. Where he was like, it's not that growing up we couldn't afford to have other people do things like that, right? I mean, my dad made a good living. My mom worked a little bit here and there too, but it was always one of those things where, my mom still to this day mows her own lawn. Like, she loves doing yard work, and I'm always like, Ma, you're getting up to like almost 70 years old. Like, have someone else do this. And they're just of the mentality of like, this is my house. I want to take care of it. I'm proud of this thing. My dad still changes the oil in his car, even though he doesn't need to be doing that. He probably does it way too often because I keep telling him, like, they're newer cars, you don't need to do it. Doesn't matter. He loves doing that stuff. And so growing up, I always fought him on that because I was pretty lazy. I was like, I kind of just want to do my homework and play games and, like, not physically exert myself any more than I absolutely have to, because sweating and me do not mix. Those are not things that I think are good. But my dad would always get me up. He'd get me up in the morning and, like, and be like, we got to do this thing right now. If you want to be able to go out tonight, you got to do your brakes. You got to do your oil. Like, this stuff has to happen now. And I'm like, it can happen tomorrow. And he's like, no, like, not using those words, but he would always sort of instill in me that concept of, like, don't wait to tomorrow to do something you can do today. Like, never do that. Like, you want to get ahead in life, take care of your shit now. If something has to be taken care of, do it now. And I fought that for so long, and I used to procrastinate so much. And it wasn't until I got into probably when I graduated and I started my own business doing, like, videography that I finally realized what he was talking about. Because I was like, if I don't take care of my business, not only will I not move forward in life, but there are severe consequences.
Sure. Especially
when you're running your own business. And so that's why I am that way right now, is because, those two factors in my life of someone saying, hey, you need to do this, and someone saying, hey, you're fucking up royally, like, I'm going to scream at you if this doesn't happen. Like, those are the things that motivate me.
Yeah, I think the lesson of being against procrastination, I think, is especially important, because I don't like procrastination myself, like, because I don't like things lingering, and it's not even like professionally, it's like just things you have to do, right? Like, if I'm like, I have to do the laundry, I have to go to the grocery store, I have to go drop off, my dry clean, I have to do all these things, I'm doing them fucking now.
Yeah.
Like, I
you
can't have
do
this
that shit Saturday morning.
Yeah, like, I can't have this shit hanging over me. Like, I have to get it over with. And, like, that is an important lesson, I think, from one's parents. I will say that, like, the one thing I respected about my parents more than anything to respect about them is that they really did let us off the leash and, like, let us do what we wanted as long as we weren't hurting anyone or whatever. And so we did find our own ways, but I've always kind of been sympathetic that, like, my father, a pretty manly man, unlike me, who was, fireman and, big car guy and owns old cars and new cars and, like, does all those kinds of things, and, like, would beg me to, like, when I was younger, be like, you want to fix this engine with me, or you want to, like, renovate this thing in the house or whatever? I'd be like,
yeah.
No, like, I don't, like, I'm going to go play D&D now, or, like, go to hockey practice or something. And, I think for him, like, I'm sympathetic to him because he watched his two boys, like, become an animator and a video game kind of personality or whatever, like a writer. And it's like, that's great. And he's proud of us. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm sure that during those times when Dagan was like, when I was a kid and Dagan was like, I'm going to go to art school. And he was probably, and they were probably like, like, that's fine. I'm sure no one gave him a hard time. And I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's like, it would have been,
You just want to bond with your son. That's how I always felt with my dad. My dad's the exact same, where he was, up at fucking 6 in the morning, and I mean, now he's up at like 3 in the morning going to work. But I mean, like on the weekends, mowing the lawn, changing the oil, doing the thing, washing the cars, always outside of the house. And yeah, he'd come in, and I'm in the dark basement playing.
Yeah,
whatever.
I respect it because they never tried to change me. Like, I think my mom's an academic, and so I think that, like, she, with my sisters who were both teachers, I think she got a little bit more of that. I know because I think it was verbalized to me, but I think one of my siblings or something like that was that, like, they were sad that I didn't go to grad school, originally. Like, they were, like, sad by that. I'm the least educated person in my family, and in my immediate family. And so, like, I respect that, but I also respect that they just kind of let us off the leash and, like, let us do what we wanted to do. Yeah, and they were, and so they ended up being right about a lot of those things. And I thought it was an interesting topic nonetheless to bring up, because I really do respect the shit out of what, my parents are good people, and I respect that ethic they put into me, the hard work and the respect. I've also tried to take, life lessons from those things as well. Like, my dad lost, my parents' marriage blew up because my dad was a fucking workaholic, like, completely. Yeah. Never home, ever. I didn't know my dad at all until after they were divorced. I didn't know my dad at all. I would see my dad like once every 10 days when I was a kid, maybe. Yeah, like, I'm being totally dead serious. Like, you would.
That was the generation, though. I tell you this story too. My dad used to work. He had a 2-hour commute every day, both ways. So for like 4 hours a day, he was sitting in the car. He would leave at like, I think he would get up at like 4:30 in the morning, be in the car by like 5:30 just to get to work. And then he would come home, and then we always, he was always doing something else too. He always had like the family had as a business, things like that, and he would have to take care of because his father died when we were all very, very young. So there was no one left to do that. And so my dad would put in like 10, 12-hour days. He'd come home. I remember he'd come through the door in a suit. He had the big suit with the freaking
The
shoulder pads
pads
that looked like he just got stepped off the turf. And I was like, Lou, why don't you go put that back up there? We're gonna have some dinner right now. And he would come down and have a meal with us, and then he'd go right back up to his office and work like 3-4 more hours.
Sure, that was the same thing with my dad, and he still is a workaholic. You know what I mean?
my
He works
dad is
7
too.
days a week construction, doing the crane operation.
That's
and
crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
I think
keep it all rolling.
Spider-Man
over.
doesn't take a break.
No,
Neither
well,
can
yeah,
he.
exactly. That's his thing. He's out there just in case Spider-Man needs him.
I think folks can't from that generation can't, and it's fine, but they can't let go of those kinds of things. Like my dad worked many jobs at the same time in order to provide. We lived in this massive house on Long Island, and an acre of land. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we were really very middle class people. And I often wondered in retrospect, like he would say, like I did that for you guys, and I'm like, yeah, but you didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an in-ground pool and a 2-car garage. It's like, but like the garage was empty because like you were gone,
Yeah.
and like all this kind of stuff happened. And I'm not criticizing him at all. He did what he thought
what
was
you gotta
right.
do.
He did,
Yeah.
and I respect the shit out of that. And I don't, my parents got divorced many years ago. I mean, it's like 24 years ago. It's like old news, but I just try to take lessons from that too, being like, I wonder what he would have done differently. And you can kind of like put
yeah.
little things like, we lived in a smaller house on a half as big of land with an above ground pool. Would have that been better for everybody? Like, I don't, I'm like, and that all ended up going away anyway. All of this, when my siblings all went to college, we didn't need that space anymore. We sold that house. It's all gone. It's a memory.
Sure.
I try to think about those kinds of things and try to kind of garner life lessons from the mistakes they seem to have made, whether or not they'd admit them or whether or not they look at them as mistakes
Yeah, exactly.
as well.
Do they think
Because
they're mistakes?
That combination of decisions got us to this point, so I wouldn't want to like go grandfather paradox anything that happened, of course.
100%.
But nonetheless, props to all of our parents because I think that it takes. I was just talking about this. I don't know who the hell I was saying this, so it's a good way to wrap it up. Is that good kids come from bad situations sometimes, and bad kids come from good situations sometimes, like very affluent or very like loose situations sometimes. But I do believe that generally speaking, if a good person exists in this world as an adult, they probably came from a good place. Now, that's not always the case, but it is, I think, typically the case. And so what that tells me is that a lot of people are being raised the right way. For all the people that are not being raised the right way, there are lots of people being raised the right way. And I think that parenting is watching my sister raise 3 boys and my other sister raise a daughter by herself and like my brother raising his kids. It's a very remarkable kind of thing. It's scary.
Yeah.
You're like the steward of these people and they're going to like like live or die based on you.
Literally.
But not even that. Like in 20 years from now, when
Nobody's
my
fighting
nephew's 30,
Yeah, I know. It'll be based on the decisions
it'll be
that were
all
made.
based on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
Exactly.
it's true.
It's very serious.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Nick,
Yes.
what's your topic?
My topic actually goes along with something Tim said earlier, which was we were talking about art and what value does art have, true value does art have in society. I was watched a lot of films over the weekend, one of which was a film called The Neon Demon. And this is a film by Nicholas Winding Refn, who is the gentleman who did a movie called Drive with Ryan Gosling.
I like that movie.
And also did another movie called Only God Forgives with Ryan Gosling.
I heard people didn't like that movie.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll get to that in a second. The question is, I watched a documentary. His wife made a documentary about him while he was making Only God Forgives. So they were in Bangkok the entire time. He had moved his whole family there for 10 months, or I think, 10 weeks maybe, to do the pre-production and then the production of the film. And during the documentary, you sort of start to see he doesn't necessarily want to share where he's at emotionally, but you can start to see him unwind a little bit because Drive was by far his most commercial work that he's done as a major release in the United States. He's done some other stuff in I believe he's from Denmark. So he's done some stuff in Europe, but Drive was sort of seen as an art film that has a tremendous commercial value, right? A lot of people, good word of mouth, made its money back. Soundtrack. Everyone loves the soundtrack. It took Ryan Gosling from like The Notebook Ryan Gosling to like megastar Ryan Gosling that he is right now. And he had a few other films in there as well, but it helped kind of usher him in as like, hey, I'm a serious actor. This is awesome. This is happening. And then you get Only God Forgives, which is what the documentary follows. And you start to see him struggle with the idea of he knows he's not making a commercial work, right? Only God Forgives was a art film. It was a film that was just laden with symbolism and foreshadowing and a lot of thematic devices and not a lot of dialogue and not a story that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it does when you kind of sit back and just let it affect you. I liked it. My wife walked out of the room probably about 20 minutes and was like, "Not for me. This is not a good or bad film. Just I can tell it's losing my attention." And so I'm like, I'm gonna watch The Neon Demon because I really want to see what this guy does next. But during the documentary itself, he has a moment where he basically freaks out at the camera, and it was like, and I thought it was a really, really poignant thing because I think it's the thing all artists struggle with, right? Is that she goes, why are you like this? Why are you being like this? And he goes, because this film is just not fucking good enough. It's not good. You don't understand. Like, it has to be perfect because it's not commercial, if that makes sense. It's not going to make any money, so it has to be fucking perfect so that when people watch it, they think this is a true piece of art that deserves to be, made, and I'm worth something, versus most other people who direct films are only worth whatever their film makes, right? Like, I don't know if Jon Favreau really necessarily thinks about the art behind Iron Man, right? Or Iron Man 2. He just goes, this is going to be a fun movie. I'm going to make it, and it's probably going to make a lot of money, and I'll get another gig, right? Where you have on the opposite polar side of that spectrum, you've got Nicholas Winding Refn, who is only concerned with making something amazing and doesn't give a shit about the commercial value of it, and he's not being rewarded for that. So I just kind of wanted to get your guys' perspective of, like, where do you feel like in this day and age, either art films or art games, we can open it up to whatever, how does that fit in with our culture these days?
I mean, I think this is actually a great jumping off point for it because that director in particular, like just looking at Drive.
Yeah.
I don't think Drive's a great movie. Like, I think that it has a lot of issues, and when you look at it as a whole, it's just like it's good, but I don't think it's great. Having said that, I think it's a fantastic movie.
Right.
Like
that's perfect. That's a perfect way of putting it. Right?
It is so there's so much thought that's put into things, so that when you look at all the little pieces, it's like, man, these are all so good.
Yeah.
But then when you look at it a whole, I feel it's like, oh, it missed something. But it's like, I can't identify what that something is. And I think that when you put them all together, they don't necessarily all work together, which is the issue, but every single thing is so good. There's a YouTube channel, Every Frame of Painting, and Kevin put me onto them, and they do this one guy does awesome breakdowns of movies or just any type, an aspect of filmmaking, whatever. Sure. There's a whole episode just about Drive, about how something I think he called it the quadrant system, where every shot in the movie, it's really divided so that like things are happening in one of the 4 quadrants of the frame, so that always is enhancing the story. Like there you can see it on search on YouTube because it is brilliant. There's the scene in the hallway where the woman they just miss each other, and then she goes into her room and he goes into his for the first time, and then they kind of repeat the motif there, and just the way that they're in the hallway and how they see each other and how far back they are, you can watch it without audio, and you can get something out of it. And there's other scenes in it as well, like the elevator scene and a lot of things, and it's just it really tells this story. And the intro to that movie, to me, feels like one of the most perfect 10 out of 10 short films. Yeah. You could have ended right when he's walking out of the stadium and just been like, bam. And it's just thought-provoking. There's so much going on there without much. There's not even a single line of actual dialogue. There's a little bit of
there's no backstory of who he is, no backstory of why the guys are robbing this thing. It doesn't matter. It's just about them coming together for those 30 seconds that he's going to wait for them before he takes off.
You don't know if he's good or bad. You don't know any of this stuff. It just happens. And then there's a movie that happens after it. And I think that's where it's crazy, where it's like, you can kind of take that intro out of the movie and the movie could still happen. And that to me is what's most interesting, is that whether it's the beautiful intro or the relationships that these characters have, even now thinking about it, I don't think I could tell you what the plot of that movie is from beginning to end. There's I get the general.
That's the thing too with Drive. There's not a terrible amount of plot. It's not, and then that's the question is so that was my exact reaction to watching Neon Demon, which was, I was like, this is not what my concept of a good movie is.
I've never even heard of that one. What's that? What's
the movie itself is, again, it's hard to kind of summarize, but it's Elle Fanning is the star. And it's about a young girl who comes to LA to be a model, basically. And it's a hyper realized, hyper violent, hyper over sexualized commentary on what the model industry is, and how superficial society is, and how, without giving too much of the plot away, she is sort of, if you want to say, possessed by this sort of this neon demon, this need to feed off of this, off of like how people perceive her.
Okay.
And she buys into it and becomes this thing that then, it just consumes her, and everyone around her like either wants a part of her or wants to kill her. And like, it's even the first frame of the film is like, it starts on this stunning frame of like her laying down with her throat slit, but it's beautifully composed, and as it pulls out, you start to see flash bulbs, and it's a photo shoot.
Yep.
And so things like that.
She's okay.
But obviously, it's foreshadowing some sort of trauma or chaos she's going to go through in her character development. Not a lot of plot. What I just told you right there was the entire plot of the movie. If you go in expecting there to be
more,
any other things that happen to her, no.
But I think that's awesome. Like, again, with Drive, it's like, we didn't need more. Like, that's just what's happening. You can kind of just add whatever it is you need to it, because it is. So the trailer for that movie, for Neon Demon, I remember seeing it. I think you saw it too. I think I was watching a movie with you. But I was like blown away by it, where I'm like, man, this is my type of movie, in that it is just style over substance. Absolutely. Then at the end it says like the director of Drive or whatever. And I was like, man, I'm totally wrong. It is substance over style. They're just using that style to like accentuate the substance that there is. Like that, the trailer reminded me of a music video that I want to see, and I can imagine that the movie was just a very long music video that's thought out to tell a story, whatever it needs to be, in the same way that those like art pieces, like the art music videos that are made, would do the same thing.
I mean, that's a perfect way of talking about it, right? Where it is in the rawest sense combining audio, visuals, and color in some way to evoke emotion without necessarily needing to worry about the classic style of screenwriting where there's a catalyst, the first act turning point, a midpoint where the person is on. None of that shit is there. Okay. This is like going to the De Young or the MoMA and seeing an image that both turns you on and terrifies you at the same time, and then staring at it for 20 minutes and then walking away and then thinking about that. That's exactly what this film is.
And what's cool about it to me is seeing that trailer, I immediately got vibes of Black Swan.
Oh yeah,
where it's just because like dancing, like photography, modeling. There's a lot there. But I think that Black Swan is a bit more, and Aronofsky, also another director that is very like arty.
He's very artsy,
that stuff. But even that is more. There is a real narrative, and that is the point.
Sure.
His shots and stuff enhance the narrative. Whereas I think that with Neon Demon, without seeing it, just seeing the trailer and based on seeing Drive, like it is the shots themselves are telling a story that, while it enhances the plot, I think that story is the real important story.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could watch it probably without this. I mean, I wouldn't watch it without the sound, because he always picks amazing soundtracks and amazing composers to work with.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
the best part.
Chromatics and Kavinsky from Drive were just that first
song.
That
song is awesome.
Where it's like I think it's called "Tick of the Clock" is so good in Drive, and again, that was another one of those things where you watch "Only God Forgives," and I had the same reaction to that, where I was like, this is not a film in the conventional sense of how I think of a movie. This is not a movie. This is a film. This is something that you're going to walk away from and have a reaction to it. And maybe it's a bad reaction, but there's some merit in that, right? Whereas, if I watch a really bad sequel to a Marvel film and I'm like, whatever, there's no reaction, didn't evoke any emotion other than boredom, I don't know that that's good. But the question is, why... And it sucks to say, but I don't know how many more chances he's going to get to make films like this, because they're not making. I looked at the budget of it. I think it only grossed about $1 million and cost about $7 million to make. But it sucks because I don't understand why more people aren't open to that. And I see it in myself. When I sit down, I start to immediately revolt against the experience of saying this is not. This is the age-old adage of you have to give audiences exactly what they want, but a little bit different. You have to give them exactly the same thing as before, but different. Is this is totally different, and why am I revolting against this? Why don't I just sit back, turn the lights off, and experience this? And once you do that, holy shit, it's a ride.
I think that's a totally different topic too, of just does art deserve money? Does art need money?
That's the thing, is and not knowing him or his body of work outside of Drive, isn't it possible that he should just make movies with less smaller budget so that he can make a greater profit, so he can flip it that way?
I think that's what he's started to do. I think ever since Drive, I think the budgets have gone down a little bit. At least Only God Forgives, I think was I think twice the budget of Neon Demon. I don't know. I have to look him up on IMDb. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this, I don't know about this one, but I don't know how you market this film, right? I don't know how you know, Elle Fanning is notable. You've seen her. I don't know if she necessarily is going to put butts in seats. I don't know if people are going to come and watch the movie simply because she's in it, right? It's not like she's Emma Watson or Emma Stone, rather. This is not a Channing Tatum movie. This is not a big movie that you can go out there and market. And how do you market it? Because the trailer is literally just shots.
But
right?
the thought of my argument, not being the movie guy at all, right?
Sure.
My argument would be like, do you need to market it? It sounds like it's going for a very specific audience like you, right? It's from the gaming side. It's like when there's some weird ass indie, it's a Western RPG, but they're making like your classic JRPG, and they're doing this, and it's only coming out on PC. And as you just go getting more and more niche, that niche audience has to take care of it. They're not buying ads on IGN for that thing, right? They know that that's going to find it. They know they're not going to get most likely rich off of it, but that's how it's got to be traded. Because like I am mass consumer movie guy, right? And it's like I only consume. I'm trying to be better this year, but I mean the amount of movies I watch a month. I mean maybe I'm lucky to get one or two in, and it's like then I am looking for the thing that I like. When Neighbors 2 is on Amazon, I'm going to watch it because I like Neighbors 1, and that seems like something fun to have on while I eat food or whatever.
Sure.
I'm not looking for the cerebral symbolism, all this stuff. I want you to tell me the story and entertain me.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not so pretentious to say that I don't thoroughly enjoy exactly
no.
that
I know you're not,
experience you just talk about. I love that.
You are the analog to us with games, right? But
Sure.
you're with movies where you enjoy the spectrum of everything, and you can see what you like. You're gonna sit. You're like you want to sit there and be challenged, whereas I want to sit there like I was so excited today, where I'm like. I'm gonna finish Stranger Things this week. I'm gonna watch the last 4 episodes of Stranger Things. But I was like, oh, maybe I really want to play it. Oh, I can play No Man's Sky and have Stranger Things going on the iPad next to me and look over every so often when I'm mining or whatever because I really want to play No
The
Man's Sky.
last 4 episodes of Stranger Things are awesome.
Well, if they are, then
you're
I'll
a
stop and I'll
crazy
click them
person.
over. But it's the same thing I do with Hard Knocks, right? I put Hard Knocks on or whatever
Yeah.
show I want to watch that I don't feel that Orange is the New Black, something I don't want to be
Yeah,
invested
but
in.
here's the thing. I think it's an interesting thought that like because I've been on multiple sides of this where I'm like art isn't there's no parallel between art and consumerism or art in the market, right? But that's not true. Like the more I've like realized that is that like actually art just has to be good, just like anything else, and that's like the really
has to resonate.
Yeah, exactly. That's the really hard part that like people like refute. Like it's like when people are like, well, but this people don't get it. And I'm like, well, that's not the people's fault. That's the fucking artist's problem for people not getting it. People got drive, right?
Yeah, they did.
And like because it was good enough. And that's maybe what he was saying was that like there is a small section of people that like art house things, just like art games and art rock and all these kinds of things. It's great. I'm not saying that like money has to be made by everything that exists, but money's a good indicator that something is good or something isn't, or at least that something resonates or something doesn't,
Sure.
right? And people are like, well, art's in the eye of the beholder. And I'm like, so is everything else. This fucking water jug is in the eye of the beholder. Whether or not this made money, I don't know. I stole this from Aaron, right?
Right.
But like, this is the same as art. You're buying it for the same reason. It's on the shelf and it catches your eye and then you're interested in it before you know it, you're using it, right? Mm-hmm. And like, it's the same exact thing as a painting or a song. Like there are bands like Dredge, for instance, that I really love that I'm like, I really don't understand how these guys didn't get huge, but they didn't, like they didn't, they're never going to. It's something that I resonate with them, but I also realize that there's probably something missing that makes them commercially successful still to this day, as opposed to the Beatles, which doesn't get any more commercially successful because they're fucking awesome.
Right.
There are a million bands from 65 to 72 or so that were like the Beatles. The Turtles had Happy Together, and before that there were the Yardbirds and all these kinds of things. None of them are the Beatles because none of them are as good.
Yep.
And like that, and so like we have to kind of have our hard talks about those. Like Journey's a great example for not the band, which is awesome, but the game. That's a really abstract,
pretty
weird game.
successful.
That game is a massive commercial success.
Yeah.
Still, years after it came out, because it's fucking awesome.
Right.
And we were talking about that as the antithesis of Abzu, which I think is just this try hard journey. We already have a journey. We don't need Abzu. And so people that were listening to the Beatles in '68, when another Beatles, like when a record label very wryly tried to create their own Beatles, everyone's like, well, we don't need this other band. So they're just, you don't even know who they are now.
we already have a George.
We already have a
We
George.
have the Monkees.
So I guess that's what I'm saying is that like I appreciate and love art, but I also think the market speaks to art just the way the market speaks to a glass, just the way the market speaks to a phone.
It's hard though
is it good
because
enough?
that's my question though. But money is a decent indicator, but oftentimes what in film specifically, money is an indicator of how much marketing money has
Transformers.
pushed this in front of people to the point where they're going to watch it, right? Like a perfect example of that is Batman v Superman, which is a very divisive film. A lot of people.
No one can find any good in Transformers.
That's
find
fairly
good
true.
In Batman.
That's fairly true. So the question then becomes like, if people pushed something like the Neon Demon hard enough, if you put $20 million or $30 million worth of marketing behind that, would that film have made money?
I guarantee it, because
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, with the trailer, without knowing it was the guy that did Drive, I saw that and was like, this looks awesome.
Right.
And with movie trailers these days, I mean, when you're talking about the Transformers or the Marvel movies or the whatever it is, comedies and stuff, it's like we find those. We, especially us, talk about those things constantly. The moment a Star Wars trailer comes out, it is a matter of moments before we've seen it 3 times.
Yeah.
So for me to see a movie trailer about a movie I have never heard of is pretty rare, right? And so it's when we go to see those movies that we were just talking about,
Right.
seeing the trailer for, that they, in between the next DC movie and the next Marvel movie, there is this random ass trailer that's like, is this a horror movie? I'm feeling a little scared, like what's going on? That's cool, because it totally grabbed me and totally sold me. And that is the key to the successful art, like penetrating the market. I think that's why something like Journey, and E3, right? Press conference. We know we're going to get the new Call of Duty trailer. We're going to get the new trailer. All these games, like even God of War, like we know a new God of War is coming. We know we're getting that. But it is then what is this Journey thing? I don't know, but it's being put between all these things that we do care and know about.
Yeah,
And
that's an important note.
That's the hard part.
That's an important note too, because I think you can market the shit out of anything to make it relevant, right?
Yeah.
But the other side of the argument to me is, what movie from 20 or 30 years ago is just this unknown quantity still? Like it's just sitting there on a shelf and someone's waiting to discover it. You know what I mean? Like it's like we already know as far like back then it's like
Sure.
The Breakfast Club is like a classic. Everyone loves
Right.
that movie because it's fucking awesome. But 3 O'Clock High was probably not a very good movie. And while like we have some nostalgic glasses about it and we think it's a good movie, it's
Right.
not The Breakfast Club, right?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? It's like
No, a perfect example of that was like Big Trouble in Little China, right? Which was a commercial flop when it came out, and then everyone discovered it on home video and was like, wait a minute, this movie's awesome, and now it's wildly kind of held in high regard.
Right.
People, like a lot of people love that film.
Exactly, and so like I feel like it's a complicated issue, but I also think it could be boiled down to like, yeah, you have all these extraneous things, the marketing and the attention you give it. Obviously, Journey is a good example of Sony Sony paid a lot of money for that game, and they're going to put their attention behind that, and maybe you force that into the limelight. But I think that if Journey wasn't given that kind of treatment, Journey would still be as big today.
You think so?
It would have just taken longer because Journey's fucking great.
Everyone
Yeah,
talks
You know what I
about
mean?
it, word
Like
of mouth
Journey
again.
is just an objectively great game, and so, and
Yeah.
I think in a way, yeah, maybe it wouldn't have made, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know how many copies it sold. Maybe it wouldn't have sold 10 million. Maybe it sold 8 million, and maybe it would have done it over a shorter period of time. But Journey is still great. Not that didn't make Journey great, and so. Like there are a million things I love where I'm like, I don't understand how this isn't bigger, but I know that something's missing. There's a piece of the puzzle missing. It's not mass consumer enough. It's
Yeah.
not, and it doesn't diminish its right to exist, and it doesn't diminish its value. I think Dredge is more valuable than almost any music I listen to, even though they don't even have a gold record. You know, like I think that's just better music than anything I listen to. But Britney Spears, sold more records in probably 2 hours than Dredge sold in their entire career.
Well, that's
Britney Spears is not in any way, shape, or form better than them.
No.
But they knew how to market it. They knew how to market her. It existed for a period of time. It's art in its own way and all those kinds of things. You have to interpret it based on through those lenses, I think. I think it's relevant and important to say that. So I hate the argument necessarily that like art doesn't, not that anyone's making it this table, they're not, but a lot of people do, that art can't exist in market capitalism, because I think market capitalism is a great direction, a great sign on if art is art and if it's valuable or not. And these things, especially in the age of the internet, we were just talking about Shakespeare and all these kinds of things and how the internet has proliferated so many voices that we don't need a Shakespeare. We don't have a Thomas Jefferson or a Ben Franklin anymore. But it goes that's the same kind of idea of that. Nothing stays hidden for very long. Ni no Kuni was a secret only to me because I had a build of it very early until everyone got it, and then everyone realized it was awesome. They didn't need me,
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? But like, I Am Setsuna, I liked it because it itched me in a nostalgic sort of way, but it's not a great game, and everyone knows that. That's why it didn't take off. That's why they lost money on it.
Yeah,
You
by
know,
the way,
and so that's
I'm not saying one way or the other. I want people to make their own decision on. You can take that off, by the way. I'll just throw another one on.
been playing with it,
that's
like,
been
all-
giving you trouble for the last 3 podcasts. I apologize. I'm not saying one way or the other whether or not The Neon Demon is a good or bad film. I enjoyed it, but I don't think that it's not one of those films that I can outwardly say like it's great. I want everyone to go experience, because it's an experience and you should do that for yourself. But I do think that it's different than Drive. I do think that Drive had something inherently, whether it was shareable or something that you wanted to talk about, or maybe it was a little more accessible than the Neon Demon. And I think that that's what a lot of people walked away from the theaters thinking, I'm going to tell someone to go see this because I want them to know that I discovered this gem that maybe they haven't heard about, right? Whereas Neon Demon, you walk away and you're like, I think I'm going to make sure I'm going to check my door, make sure it's locked tonight.
Yeah.
And maybe watch some porn.
I think that also, I mean, when it comes to,
Trust me, you'll know.
When you talk about BuzzFeed and you talk about internet stuff and the culture these days, it's a sharing culture. Like you even just said it. It's like you sharing something with people is saying a little bit about yourself. And I think that something that Drive had was that it was obviously artsy and obviously intellectual, and you were obviously supposed to put your own thoughts into it, but it was still accessible. And I think that that allows more people to want to represent themselves that way. Whereas I think something like Neon Demon potentially is a little bit too high, high up there, and like maybe with Dredge as well, where it's like that's what it's missing, is that accessibility to people that aren't film buffs, you know what I mean, to pretend that they are for a little bit, like to kind of see into that world and feel like they do know what they're talking about, and they can look at the frames and be like, huh, this is a beautiful shot.
I don't understand why or what's happening, but I've
never thought that before watching any movie, but seeing this, I do get that, and I think that's like, it's a little kind of glimpse into something that like makes people feel good about themselves.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Game Over Greggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table. Each bring a random topic discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where you can toss us a few bucks and get every episode early, along with a bunch of exclusives, goodies. I swear to fucking God, Kevin. Just keep it on the wide. Why are you cutting around to the outro? It's your fucking problem.
Look, Kevin, come back to me.
Come back. Give me the rack zoom.
Zoom in on me. My stomach.
If you don't want to give us any money, I totally fucking understand. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny, where we put up the show topic by
Let the
topic.
market speak.
Day by day until the entire thing posts as one big video in MP3 the following Friday. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.